Oh, well, that's not the right scene.
New
Oh,
signal.
we can see you apparently.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to another Ones Who Came Before. We've got a team stream going on right now. I got a load of my friends here. We're going to have a phenomenal time. Nikki's here. What's up, Nikki? I hope you can actually see this because according to my readout, my bitrate's in the toilet. So if you guys can't see the stream, please let me know and I'll sit here and cry. However, we're here to have some fun. For any of the thank you, Laurie. Thank you. For anybody who recalled the recent 24-hour fundraising stream I did, we did a team stream. We did a tier list of the different Assassin's Creed games, but we've got a whole troop with us today to do every single Assassin's Creed protagonist. Like I said, I got some friends here, so let's bring them on. Not John, James. What's up, buddy? How you doing?
I'm alright, mate. How are you?
I am living the dream, man. I'm here with my friends. I'm talking about what I love. I'm having a great time doing it. You ready for some fun?
I'm ready. I've been looking forward to this. This is going to be my. Let's get Edward down that list, shall we?
I was gonna say we got to agree, like, no rabbit punches, no eye gouging. We got to keep this civil.
Has to be all above the belt.
Agreed. But I know I'll be in the right here because I have the majority, because I have Lori here as well. What's up, Lori?
Hi, how are you doing?
I'm having a grand old time. I really am. I've been looking forward to this, like, ever since we talked about doing it. I'm jazzed, I'm excited, I'm ready to go, and I'm glad you're here, because if I'm in the majority about Black Flag being amazing, then that means James is automatically incorrect.
I completely agree.
Yeah.
Yeah, good.
I will plead the fifth on this one.
All right, and last but certainly not least, not present for the 24-hour stream, but present today because he's just that cool. Charlie, what's up, buddy?
Yo, what's up? I'm so excited to do this. I'm excited to do some rankings, get some scrapes, some bruises, some war wounds. I'm ready.
He's just assuming we're going to tear each other apart, and for good reason, because we probably will.
Here now.
Yeah.
All right. Now, for any of my American friends who are watching this, we are watching this at a nice, balmy, temperate 6 o'clock in the evening. At least if you're on the Eastern Seaboard, East Coast, Beast Coast. However, we do have some friends who are not in the East Coast, so we're gonna try not to keep this at a 6-hour block like we did last time, because some of us have some things we got to do today, so we're going to try to move this at a good pace. But please do let us know in the comments, in the Twitch, in the chat, in the TikToks, in the YouTubes. I'm tired today. I don't know what half of those words were, but let us know what you think as we go through, because we're going to bang this out real quick here. We've got our tier list, everything from S to A to B to C to D, and if this is anything like the last stream, we will have to add several categories just to keep things civil between us all. But we do want to hear your thoughts. We want this to be a community discussion, so please let us know what you think in the chats. That's the word, chat. That's the word I was looking for. All right, friends, are we ready to do this?
Let's go.
Yes.
Do it.
All right. How exactly do we want to do this? Because we found a fascinating tier list here that not only includes the assassins themselves of the historical events, but you might be able to see both Layla Hassan and Desmond Miles there towards the end of the list. Do we want to do current day first? Do we want to do in-game release order? What are we doing?
I think we'll just do it what it's as it is on the tier list. So let's see what they're in that order. Let's just go from there, I guess. Might be the easiest way to do it.
I will agree with that up to a point, but you'll see what I'm doing in a minute. However, Bossman says do it in order. Let's do it in order. That brings us, of course, first to Altair ibn La'ahad. What are we thinking? Initial thoughts? Does anybody want to jump on first?
Oh, I'm going to say an A class.
James right out of the gate with the A class. Do you Tell me the story here. Why are we thinking A?
I think nobody farms aura like there's probably only one person who exudes aura as much as Altair.
Okay.
And for him kickstarting a franchise that we all love and adore.
Sure.
I just think he deserves to be. He's not quite S tier. For me, there are a few that are above him, but he's definitely up there as one of the greats.
Okay.
That's it.
So we got an A tier right out of the gate from James. Lori, Charlie, you want to dive in here?
Yeah, I agree actually with that for Altair as A. I do think that there might be some protagonists that have like when you weigh all of the different factors that could go into, putting a protagonist on this tier list, I do think that he earns the respect for being, the starting factor and having such a profound impact on Brotherhood at whole. So I think A tier is a very good place for him. So I agree with that.
A tier is fitting. Lori, are we hopping on the wagon with everybody else?
I think that's a strong start. I think I agree.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah, I think they have a point. He does get credits for being the first character because, like, let's be honest, if he would have sucked, nobody of us would have met Ezio.
True.
So
Very true.
True.
I think it deserves credits.
Okay.
Like extra. So I'm fine with A tier.
Okay. I'm good with A tier, I'm thinking. I'm good with it, of course. You never forget the first. The original. I got nothing but love for Altair. The one quip, the one complaint I do have about him, in all those years. What, you guys agreeing? I wonder how long this will last. Thank you, Nikki. I was amazed by that too. I'm thinking A tier. I'm not thinking S tier because of my one quip with him. Are you really telling me, Altair, that in all those years of interacting and working with and meeting with and speaking with your mentor, you really never saw any evil there? You really just nothing?
Blind faith,
Nothing.
isn't it?
Yeah, because I mean, the freedom of the assassin should be met with some level of healthy questioning of the order and the structure that they operate within. That's just me, so I'm gonna go with A. Big Boss is here. Carl, hi there, team. Hello, Colm. I'm glad to see you here. You're an A tier team. You're gonna make me blush. All right, we've got Ezio, or Jesus, Altair in A tier. That, of course, we're going to spend a lot of time with him. We've got our boy Ezio.
That's an S tier. That's anyone who disagrees on that one.
Ezio,
It's
specifically Ezio in just Assassin's Creed 2.
Ooh.
I'm still going to go S tier. I think he was already. So I think he was already like S tier quality, and within each game, he gets progressively better. But I think he was already at that point where he was better than everybody else. Like, if you ask most people, it's between one of two, maybe three assassins, but Ezio is always in everybody's at least top three, if not top five.
Okay.
So I think it's an S tier for me all day.
Okay. I'm hearing S tier with a potential build towards S plus with later games, but who else has some thoughts?
Okay, I have a little bit of pushback.
Uh-oh. The violence is starting. Hide your children.
So I agree with like Ezio being, like one of the more peak assassins here, if not the peak assassin that we've, had in this franchise as far as just like his impact on the culture. He's like a gaming icon. He's
Of
an
course.
icon within the lore, the story, everything. His presence can be felt across multiple games. But it's like I think that, in my opinion, I would see this version of Ezio at least as an A tier, just because
Ooh.
we were fortunate to get a full story of Ezio going from being young to old, and I just think the older Ezio, it's like everything I loved about Ezio plus like a different side to an assassin that makes him even more like impressive in my books and makes him even more amazing in my books.
Okay.
So like if it was one Ezio here, I think I would agree to push it to S tier, but because we have another iteration of Ezio on here that I respect even more than this one, I think I would distribute him down to an A tier. And
Okay.
that's on that one.
Okay, we've got some infighting amongst the team already. I gotta admit, I'm with Charlie on this one, for a slightly different reason. I think for a slightly different reason. When you're talking about a protagonist, you're talking about not only the story, not only the saga that leads him to being an assassin, but I'm also looking at this from the perspective of just his efficacy as an assassin, the skill set. How effective of an operator is he? And he's got some room to grow because he's a new kid. He's the new kid on the block. He's got to learn the lore. He's got to learn the history. He's got to learn all this stuff. And he's got to develop those skills. Assassin's Creed 2 Ezio, I vote A. Lori, take us home. What are we doing?
I agree on tier A. Ezio in Assassin's Creed 2, I remember rolling my eyes on him several times because he's just an immature douchebag for now, which is why I'm glad that there's several Ezios here.
Yep.
But yeah, starting with the immature Ezio in Assassin's Creed 2, like we're rating protagonists, we're not rating games, right? So that will
Yes.
be a different conversation.
Yes. Also a good point.
But yeah, if we're purely talking about Ezio in I remember liking Desmond more than Ezio
Oh.
Oof.
Oh.
in Assassin's Creed
Oh.
2.
Okay.
But yeah,
Okay.
Ezio would be for me even a B tier, but you all like we have an S tier rate, we've got A tier rate, so I'll be willing to put him in A also.
Can I just make a final plea here?
Sure.
Have at it. Have at it,
I think
brother.
It's 3 against 1 here, and I will not feel comfortable not supporting my boy and having him out here. But so, to each and everyone's point, yes, he's very immature. Yes, he's very unskilled and has a lot to learn.
Yep.
But that being said, by the end of AC2, he has already filled those boots. Like, we're talking the progression across the entire game,
Sure.
not just the beginning. So at the beginning, yes, very smug, very arrogant, very cocksure about himself. Whereas by the end of it, he understands what he needs to do, and he will get it done. And he grows in such a short space of time that I think an A tier is too low. But if I'm truly outnumbered, I will suffice and allow Ezio to be in A tier. But I think his growth across the game itself should warrant enough. But it's we'll go with the majority on this one.
I was gonna say I hear what you're saying. I will disagree. I don't know if I don't think it's necessarily his fault, but I actually disagree that he's fully been able to step into that role and step into those shoes as far as just the second game. Like again, if as people have been saying, if we're talking about across the entire spectrum, absolutely. But I think the events of 2 have not taken him far enough to fully be seated in that, master assassin position, that mentor position, that S tier position. So I'm sticking with A. Is anybody else changing?
Uh, I think I'm good. I think I'm good.
Charlie's good. Lori, we sticking with A?
Yeah, I'd put him in B, but I will.
Yeah, I'm like a shaky A. After hearing
Oh
like
my God.
Oh.
Lori's argument
B
for
would be an absolute crime.
after I
B
heard
would be a
Lori's thing
crime.
after I heard Lori's thing about moving it down to B and like the reason why, like I started to get a little shaky on my A. But
Uh-oh.
I feel like I also am pulled in like James' direction as well. So like I feel like A is a good compromise.
Yeah.
It only took the second game, and we've already made James hate us.
I don't hate anyone. Just everyone needs to remember where they're.
Disappointed.
Ezio made the series. Just saying. As long as we get, but I honestly don't care where we put anybody. As long as we get Ezio in A tier, because without Ezio, there is no AC. So at some point he needs to be in it needs to be in the S tier. So if we can
see.
agree on that at some point, I'm happy.
I see.
Oh, surely.
I do not feel comfortable at all with B, so we're across the board. We're settling into an A. We're gonna make this official. Boom.
A's
All right.
fine.
We're gonna jump towards the tail end here because I actually had to add these towards the end, but just to be able to continue the conversation, we're jumping to Ezio Auditore, just in Assassin's Creed Brotherhood. What are we thinking?
I'll let the others take this one because everyone knows where my thoughts are with Ezio. So
I gotta say, I'm comfortable with this level being an S. Because we talk about the situation that he's handed. We're talking about having to completely rebuild things. You can't do that and do it well and do it in a meaningful way without reaching that peak assassin level of understanding what the Brotherhood is supposed to be and understanding how it's supposed to operate and what's needed and being able to pull those resources and those people together. I'll shoot first on this. Ezio in Brotherhood, S tier. Who wants to jump in?
I think I'm good with that. I also agree. I feel like I agree with the sentiment that Ezio within Brotherhood is starting to understand like what being at that level means and like what the Brotherhood means and what's required to run the Brotherhood and at like a level that maybe a lot of others that we've seen on this tier list haven't reached that yet. So I definitely think amongst all the other reasons that we've listed before, he deserves a bump up in this because he did. I feel like the things that he took on in Brotherhood and successfully,
Yeah.
is it deserving of recognition above
Okay.
an A. So I agree with that.
So I'm at an S. Charlie's at an S. It sounds like James is at an S. Lori, are we going to make this unanimous, or are you going to fight us?
Nope. Nope, not willing to fight on that one. I think
Okay.
he's definitely S tier. Everything I would complain about in Assassin's Creed 2 Ezio, I love about Assassin's Creed Brotherhood Ezio.
Okay.
So yeah, definitely S tier. Really, like, in comparison to all the other protagonists that are gonna come,
Mm-hmm.
he is all the way up there also in his influence on other assassins and like being a mentor and like maturing and just like also skill wise,
Yeah.
really in every way.
Okay.
He's great.
Beautiful. Beautiful. We've managed to bring the gang back together. We are united in the front on
Thank God.
Ezio in Brotherhood as an S tier protagonist. Now, of course, we have to finish strong with Ezio in Revelations. Lori, I feel like you've been handed the last spot of commentary these past few. Why don't you start off? What you got for us on Ezio in Revelations?
Um, I think he is like if there would be a tier between Assassin's Creed 2 Ezio and Assassin's Creed Brotherhood Ezio, I would like to put him there. I think
Ooh,
Brotherhood Ezio is still a hunch better,
okay,
and or let maybe I should specify the word better. I don't mean better. He's probably more skilled and he's definitely more skilled and more wise in Revelations, obviously.
sure,
But he's more interesting in Brotherhood.
okay, okay,
Um, so A, I would probably put him thinking about like all the other characters that are gonna come,
uh-huh.
I would put him in the A tier.
Now, of course, as we did in the 24-hour stream, I have the ability to add categories. Is this our
Let's see
first
what the others
argument for
say.
an A plus?
Let's
I
see what the others say.
okay. So in a rare moment, I'm gonna say that an A tier for Revelations, Ezio is probably fair.
Okay.
I Ezio as a character is S tier all day long, but as we've discussed, splitting him up, I think Brotherhood was his peak. Revelations for me, because there's so much that we don't see of his story.
Okay.
For me, I love Ezio, but for me, Revelations was the one I clicked with the least.
Okay.
Um, and I think it's because I feel like he's an aging assassin. I feel like he's getting too old for it.
Okay.
So for me, an S tier, I think A tier, sorry, I think is fair.
Okay. Okay. So we've got Lori somewhere, maybe A plus tier, A tier. We've got James
Mhm.
sitting at an A. Charlie, what are we thinking, man?
All right, so it's interesting hearing all the opinions on this because actually, uh, Revelations Ezio is probably one of my favorite. Um,
Ooh.
it's
Okay.
Hmm.
interesting just because I've had this like talking piece on Assassin's Creed for a while that like I really want them to in more games to talk more about the effect that the Brotherhood has or being an assassin has on people of different ages and different backgrounds and different situations in life,
Okay.
rather than very often it's used as a coming of age narrative device
Sure.
or a helping heal from trauma narrative device. But what I really loved about Revelations, regardless of how the actual story was, but just like letting us see someone who is a little bit farther along in life,
Mm-hmm.
and what the Brotherhood means to someone like that, what being an assassin means to someone like that, and a story about what's being left behind and not what's being gained, but a really good way of telling a story about what's being left behind is also pairing it with there is still much more to learn, and I really think that they did a really good job with that.
Okay.
I kind of agree with Lori. I Even though he is one of my favorite, I believe it's almost in like a thing of its own, separate to me. I think what uh what Ezio and Brotherhood was. I feel like
Mm-hmm.
that's just kind of like this like peak sort of mountaintop of what I think of like, like the perfect assassin protagonist for me.
Sure.
But with Ezio in Revelations, that's like a whole new side realm of exploring assassins that I want them to go into more.
Yeah.
And I would put him also at like an A plus, I guess.
Okay.
And if they could do a story like that even better, that could be a character that I can see putting at like an S tier just purely from how creative and fresh and unique that take would be. But for now, I think that idea could be done better. I think that kind of protagonist could be done better. So because of that, I would put that at like an A plus.
All right, so 2 votes for something in the A plus range. James sitting at a solid A. I gotta be honest, I'm going with A plus myself. I don't know about you
Uh,
guys, but one of the things that
I,
Oh, go ahead.
I'm sorry. I was going to say, yeah, I don't mind moving up to an A plus.
You don't mind it? Okay.
No.
Okay. I'll go A plus. Kind of to Charlie's point about what does being an assassin mean at the end of the day when the mission's over is absolutely something I wish I saw more of. And whenever I think of Ezio in Revelations, I think of the mythological story of the Shield of Achilles. You know, Achilles, this great hero of mythology, but painted on his shield was a depiction of his home farm. Because he just wanted to go home. He didn't want to fight for the rest of his life. He wanted to go home. And that's what I think about when I think about Revelations Ezio. I think, not that I necessarily have any particular scene or dialogue that I could point to, but I think a lot about just this overall kind of vibe and feeling that I get from him that, you know, he wants to be there. He wants to be the mentor. He wants to lead the assassins and help them deal with what's in front of them. But he also just wants to be able to go home. He feels like he's lived his adventure. He feels like, you know, he's reached the maximum of what he can do. And at the point towards the end of the game where he's talking about, you know, okay, this apple is here. No, this is meant for someone else. You know, I've lived my adventure for my lifetime. And, you know, like I said, to Charlie's point about, you know, what does it mean for a family? What does this mean for, you know, when the mission's over, when you lose people? You know, how many people can you lose and still stay standing at the end of it? I think that Revelations took probably the best shot I've ever seen Assassin's Creed take with this. So I'm going to go A+. And it sounds like we're in agreement. So we will make this official with our very first tier category ad, A+, Assassin's Creed Revelations Ezio.
Perfect.
Okay, I don't know how clearly the tier list is coming in for you guys, but I'll tell you the next image. We don't have to do all of these, of course. We were talking about this a little bit before we went live. We don't have to do all of these, but technically, the next person on the list is Haytham Kenway.
Oh, let's please talk about him.
Lori's chomping at the bit here.
I think if we're putting Revelations Ezio in A+, I think Haytham belongs in A+ too. I think Haytham as a character and as a Templar and all sorts, I think he fits. He was just, I don't know, there was just something about that start to AC3 that just drew me in so much, and I just wanted more of Haytham. I could have happily done without Connor and just had Haytham. That for me would have been. I think he was a much better written character. He was a much better acted character. I just think generally he was just a more complex person. Okay. And for that, I think an A+ is I'm happy with.
Okay, A+ for Haytham Kenway. We actually like Haytham Kenway more than we like Altair as a protagonist. That's interesting to me. That's interesting.
Damn.
Okay. Lori, you seem to just be jumping for joy here at the thought of talking about Haytham. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, he's definitely very high up for me for the same reasons. I really, really enjoyed the beginning of Assassin's Creed 3.
Okay.
And I was really sad when we switched to Connor. I mean, of course, I learned to love Connor too, but yeah.
Yeah.
Haytham was a very interesting character, very complex, and kind of like for the first time giving us a little bit of a new perspective on assassins and Templars and stuff, and I will just always remember him for that.
Sure.
Also, I think he was like really dry humor, sarcastic, witty at times, and I really had to laugh about his sarcasm sometimes. Like, I just really remember him to be just one of my favorite characters. Although, like, probably that was because they wanted to make him villainy, but I don't know, it didn't work for me.
Sure, sure. Okay. Call says Team Hatham. Hey, I gotta be honest. My only gripe about Hatham has nothing to do with him as a character, and it has everything to do with how the games handled him. Hatham was the first experience that we have in Assassin's Creed with the idea of I don't want to say non-linear, but I guess complex. A complex character is the best way I can put it, because between Altair and Ezio throughout the duration of his life, they are assassins. They have their reasons for being assassins, and they're never going to be anything but assassins. But Hatham, and learning about Hatham afterwards, the small bit that you get at 3, with what I learned about his character afterwards, and about the history of his family, looking back on what little we had in 3, I wasn't happy, but that has more to do with how they structured the game and not him as a character. Him as a character being able to, be the first chance we get to look at someone and say, okay, sometimes these lines aren't clear. Sometimes you have traitors to the order. Sometimes you have people that switch sides for sometimes some very striking reasons. I still have not made my way through the novelization in which it's supposed to go into more detail about why Hatham switched sides. But the idea of just being able to see that in person, and I think it makes for a better story. I think it makes for a more compelling story. And the interplay with Connor was always fascinating to me, because yes, Connor sometimes had a tendency to come off as very grunge punk, you don't get me, Dad, this isn't just a phase kind of interaction. But there was always that presence of Hatham that says, I am your father. I represent a connection to your family. I represent a connection to family, to history, to where you come from, especially given that Connor lost his mother. I think that was always a big temptation for him, and to see that effect on Connor elevated Hatham's position in my mind. So, S tier, no. I'll back A+.
Yeah, 8+ is fine.
Charlie, did you
And-
have anything to kick in?
Yeah. So yeah, I was listening to where we stand on Hatham, but I definitely agree for a very similar reason why I agree with Ezio from Revelations as A+ tier. I just think that once again, it's just like another character that narratively within an Assassin's Creed game really stood out to me as kind of I love when they add characters, especially playable characters, that can kind of question the way that we understand Assassin's Creed, question the way that we understand the Creed, and kind of bring those ethical and moral things into kind of in question. And I feel like Hatham did really good at that, and I agree with how the character was written and the acting. And when it started with him, that whole sequence at the beginning of Assassin's Creed 3 of him on the boat. And writing and training on the boat and stuff, it just felt very different and very fresh, especially after, the kinds of Assassin's Creeds that we were playing before Assassin's Creed 3. And I just really was pulled into his character. And I also felt the same when it was over and we were playing as a young Connor. I was just like, oh man, this is really different and really interesting. And then we had another trauma situation on our hands, and I was like, "Oh, here we go."
Right.
This is what I'm more familiar with.
Sure.
But yes, I definitely would put Hatham in A+ because of that reason. Just as a character, in narratively, I just think he's really strong.
A+ it is. And of course, we've started talking about him already, so we might as well jump to everybody's favorite brooding assassin, Connor Kenway. Charlie, I feel like you haven't had a chance to tee us off, so what do you got for us on Connor?
All right, Connor. So I've had changing feelings about Connor over the years.
Okay.
Um, Connor, I feel like he once was one of my favorite as well, just because uh it it marked such a because when I first started to play Assassin's Creed, I started with Brotherhood and then went to Revelations. I didn't get a chance to play AC2 back when, it was first coming out. I kind of went backwards and played that.
Okay.
So I really enjoyed Ezio's story. But I remember that like when AC3 first was announced, I was just like blown away. I was floored. I was like, "Oh, this franchise is like even cooler than I could imagine now." Because it's like I didn't know that they had such a stylistic direction change in them. I was kind of expecting the same things that I was playing in AC Brotherhood and Revelations to kind of continue into the future ones. And then when I saw the American like Revolution, I was just like, okay, like things are getting crazy now. And I got really excited about that and the way that they changed up how the combat in the game was, and as a
Mm-hmm.
character, his combat style, it started to like make me realize that like okay, like assassins can come in all different shapes and sizes and like styles and everything. And I was just really caught up in that, and as well as his motivations and a lot of the ethical dilemmas that were in the story.
Sure.
So for Connor, but then over the time, as we got other characters, I started to see Assassin's Creed, from a bird's eye view.
Uh-huh.
uh, I started to see where he falls and what kind of character he is, and then I started to see him more as it's like, oh, okay, so he was just like this like broody character. We got like so many other characters, and then when I revisited Ezio and his story, it kind of made me feel a little bit less for Connor looking in hindsight once we got further in the franchise.
Okay.
So as far as where to rank him, as where I would rank him,
Yeah.
I would put him in A or B at this point for me. Just because I feel like there are like a lot of things with Connor that I just feel like development wise as an assassin, personality wise, maturity wise, I just feel like I didn't feel like a really strong payoff on his journey as
Okay.
far as an assassin. I feel like he like came to do what he had to do as far as, like righting wrongs in the past, but I feel like his story kind of cut before I could really see him maturing or developing into an A plus or an S tier.
Okay.
Um, and I would compare him a lot more closely to A, but I just feel like AC2 Ezio has a lot over Connor in my opinion
Sure.
already. So I would even put him as a B. So I think that's where
Okay.
I would sit.
Okay, so somewhere in the A-B range. Anybody want to
Yeah.
jump in at this point?
I Connor's one of my favorites. He's in my top 5 assassins. But that being said, he's whiny, he's miserable, he's moody.
Mm-hmm.
Um, just him as a person and as an assassin, his game is fantastic. The original, not the remaster, because that was awful. Um, but I would probably go. He's potentially a C class,
All the way
just because,
down to
just
C.
because just because I can see the list now, and I think there are so many better protagonists than him. If I was
All
going
right.
to rank, if I how I'm looking at it is my top 5. If I was to rank them
Yeah.
from S to uh, D,
Mm-hmm.
I would it he would be he's my number 5, so that would be my C list. So I
Okay.
think me that's where I'm.
Okay. Okay. So we got some infighting again. We got everything from a kind of a shaky A, it sounds like, from Charlie, all the way to a C from James. Lori, I can't remember for the life of me if you told me whether or not you actually really liked Connor.
I'm so glad you guys just said that because I mean, for me, I was thinking like, oh, probably definitely a B tier, maybe even a C. But if I like thinking about like D doesn't mean it has to be a bad character.
No,
Um,
no, that's right.
D would mean just the weakest of a bunch of strong characters anyway. So honestly, definitely C, potentially even D, because I think he's one of the weakest.
Ooh.
Because there was a big part of the game, um, that was about Hatham
Uh-huh.
that got, I don't want to say taken away, but like they should have spent more time on Connor to make him interesting or even necessary. Because what is interesting about Connor is his story, and we could have had that with just Hatham,
Sure.
honestly.
Sure.
There was not even a need to to explain that story, to tell that story through Connor.
Okay.
Um,
Okay.
I probably would have liked it much better to just stay with Hatham, stay in this different perspective. I mean, we're going to talk about Shay eventually also.
Yep. Yep.
Um,
Shay's on the list.
so we finally did get that. But yeah, Connor, I was bored,
Okay.
I was annoyed, and I was just missing Hatham. And I remember just like playing the game like, I don't know, it feels wrong that I'm for the bad guy.
Okay.
Um,
All right.
yeah, I also remember just like not liking the weapons a lot, but that's like gameplay stuff.
Sure.
But still, if we're
Sure.
talking about characters, Connor is one of the weakest for me.
I I can honestly agree. The the thing about Connor for me was always that with pretty much every other assassin, it seemed to some degree or another, pretty much every other assassin, it seemed to some degree or another that they came to the Brotherhood for different reasons, but they came to believe in what was important about the Brotherhood and, taking on that cause that was bigger than themselves. My issue with Connor was always that the assassins didn't seem like, I want to be an assassin. The assassin choice for him always seemed like, I want to get revenge. I want what I want, and I want what I want in whatever way I'm able to get it. Oh, it looks like the assassin order is the only way I'm going to be able to get it, so I'm going to join. But if somebody else had offered me the training and the weapons and the backing and the intelligence and the information, I would have gone with them just as easily if they offered me the same opportunity for revenge and for the and I get it, like the protection of his nation and his people. I get that that's a noble cause, but as far as like being an assassin protagonist, I'm just not feeling it with him. I'm going C personally, but that's what I'm feeling. So, to my count, we've got a somewhere in an A to B range. We've got a C range, and we've got a C to D range, and we've got a C. Does that sound about right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think
'Cause-
my vote can slightly be changed. Now that I look at the full list, because I didn't really take that into consideration about like where he stands amongst everyone.
Sure.
And I definitely am feeling a C with him.
Okay, so can we agree on C?
We can.
Yeah.
Yep.
Beautiful. Beautiful. See, to all you folks at home, we know how to behave and cooperate.
I feel like D is just going to be empty now. Like,
Yeah,
who's going to be in D?
No,
I-
James wants
I have-
Edward in there.
I have thoughts for D. Don't worry about that.
Oh, okay,
I have
okay.
thoughts for D.
Can't wait.
Oh, I can't wait. Okay, again, we can take a vote here. Do we want to do this? This list also includes the traditional games. We will get to the Assassin's Creed Chronicles characters in a little bit here, but technically, next on the list, especially as far as game release order, is Assassin's Creed Liberations: Avalon de Grand Prix.
I'm just going to quickly say something.
Yeah.
I haven't played Liberation, so I
Ooh.
can't I can't put a vote in.
Abstaining
So I would
from James.
put her. Yeah, I'd put her in a D just for I don't know enough about her to put her anywhere else.
Lori, Charlie, thoughts?
I think I want to hear what Lori thinks on this one first.
Okay. Okay. Deferring to Lori. What you got?
I have thoughts, but I don't know what tier I'm gonna land on at the moment. Um, I remember she was the first female protagonist, and I was absolutely happy about that because I was a teenager who was in love with this franchise. And of
Sure.
course, if there's finally now going to be a female protagonist as a female, I was like, heck yeah.
Sure.
So there were definitely a bunch of parties where I dressed up as her.
I love that.
So yeah, I barely remember the story.
Leave
I
your likes
remember
and follows
having-
on the streams if you want to see Lori in this Avalon cosplay.
I don't think there's even pictures of it left
What-
because I had braces at
what
the
do we
time,
need to
so
put?
I did take pictures of myself. Yeah, I remember I had like a desktop background wallpaper of Evelyn like on the roof,
Okay.
and stuff like that. Like I definitely remember liking her, but that mainly had to do with two things: her
Okay.
being the first female
Sure.
protagonist, and um her new kind of skill set. Um, because they brought in like the whole changing outfit kind of stuff.
Yeah.
So it was like a more charismatic, intelligent kind of gameplay instead of just brute force. Assassin's Creed was never just brute force.
Sure.
But it was still very different to the other characters. And I remember really liking that and just like feeling like, ooh, I'm exploring like new sites of how you could be an assassin and advance the agenda with other skills and stuff like that. So
Okay.
I have good memories. But yeah, what tier? I don't know. Maybe B. Like I would, because I would put her under. I'm not sure. No, actually A. Actually A.
Lori's going
A or B.
A or B.
Yeah.
Charlie, you've heard Lori's thoughts.
All
What
right.
you got for
all
us?
right. So I played a lot of Liberation.
Oh, okay.
Because it was at the time I didn't have the equipment to play AC3.
Okay.
So what was that? Oh, okay. So I have the equipment to play AC3. So I had to like miss out on a little bit of the launch of AC3, and the closest I could get to it was playing Liberation, as they released, I think, in a similar time frame, if not at the same time. Yeah, I was playing that on like the PS Vita and all that. So I played a lot of that game, and I remember like there were certain like parts about the mechanics of it, that I could complain about, but as the character, I loved Aveline. I think that they did an amazing job of using like her character to explore different sides of being an assassin. And that's the part I love, is that when they get creative with like what it means to be an assassin, as I mentioned earlier,
Yeah.
and the fact that she could change between these different identities and still be fighting for the cause or serving the cause or taking different strategies to it. And while in the moment I may have been like, oh, like I've got to like run around super slow in this dress, I can't get anywhere, and it's annoying. But at the same time, I'm like, oh, but this is so important to like her strategy and like
Yes.
her signature as an assassin. And I feel, and the way that like she like used like flirtation to get by certain, it's just like these little details and everything. I thought that was so interesting. And I also like love that she was one of the first kind of like, if not the first female Assassin's Creed protagonist. And I loved
Sure.
that as well, that they were kind of showing more not only more representation in that way, but also showing that like she has she has like these like tools in her arsenal that
Uh-huh.
really sets her apart, but also like I feel like like she can be like she is like just as like formidable as an assassin in like the whole group. And
Yeah.
what I really loved about her was that like I just enjoyed all the new features as well. So I
Okay.
also would put her as I would put her as a B.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah, can I add to that?
Please.
Because you're right. I forgot about the whole flirtation thing.
Mm-hmm.
Because yeah, it's actually like you can tell they were thinking like, well, she's gonna. I mean, she's using weapons, but she's also like like how they say like the weapons of a woman,
Yeah.
which is usually like promiscuity and stuff. But they did it in a smart and tasteful way. Like,
Yeah.
never did I think this is like degrading of women or anything. It could have gone wrong.
Oh, absolutely.
There's so many mistakes they could have done with this, but they didn't. So yeah, I just wanted to add that.
Exactly. Like I definitely agree that they were able to like not like objectify and like sexualize her as a
Mm,
character, but then also like think about like okay like like she's being smart about what tools that she has like to her
exactly.
advantage without it being made into a spectacle or something just for gaze, and that's what I also really liked.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I think probably one of my favorite mechanics of Liberation is that flirtation mechanic, and I think they implemented it well. I think the feeling for me was always, it's not like you guys are saying, it's not that sexualization or that objectification, because in every conversation that she has where she's, trying to flirt, trying to seduce, whatever the word is that they use in the game, I always got the sense that she was always in control of the conversation. Like,
Mm,
she knew exactly where she wanted to go, and she was able to get a read on these guys that she's flirting with and say, oh, you're gonna like that very, very small, very helpless, very, like, high-pitched voice, and I know that about you. And part of my skill set as an assassin is not just skill with a blade, but my ability to meet you cold, read you quickly, and use what I read quickly to get what I need. So I think that was a phenomenal mechanic. My biggest complaint about Avalyn is kind of my big complaint about Connor too. Avalyn seemed to really not as much as Connor, but to a large extent it just seemed like the assassins were a means to an end for her. She I mean, I remember her going to whatever that South American country was, and the focus was on like, okay, the slave trade is here, and this labor's being done to, oh god, I'm pushing back in my memory. They were like uncovering a temple or temple artifacts. Do you guys remember what I'm talking about?
Lost me.
Yes, I believe so.
So there was some understanding of, okay, as an assassin, this cause is important to me, so I'm going to spend some time like worrying about the slave trade here. But the majority of the character just seemed, how do I get what I want for my own, for my own means to my own end. So I'm sitting her at a solid B personally. If my math is right, that puts me at a B, Charlie at a B. I think that was Lori at an A or a B, and abstaining from James. So we're going.
As the one abstaining,
Yes.
are we, just so I can, so there are no bad assassins, that's what we've agreed on previously,
Yes.
but is she a better character than Connor?
I'd say
Yes.
so.
Not if we took the gameplay mechanics out of it, is she a better written character than Connor?
Yes.
And I'm not trying to, I'm just asking the question so
No, that's fair. That's a
so
fair
I
question.
can have a better understanding, because I don't know her as
Yeah,
well
no,
as the others.
I definitely would say she is, just because she has a little bit less to complain about than Connor does, and a lot of the things that Connor had to complain about, it became a lot of complaining and whining and emotional uncertainty and brooding. And regardless of whether it was justified or not, it kind of, it wasn't always fun writing wise to have to sit through. But
Mhm.
with Aveline, in a similar way, using the Brotherhood, for her own gain.
Yeah.
She has a lot less of that whiny, brooding, sort of emotional uncertainty that
Yep.
Connor had, and I think because of that, I was able to be more on board with the things that she was doing and her goals and everything, because it came from a place of confidence and certainty that she knew what she needed to do and why she needed to do it and stuff. But with Connor, it was just like, oh boy, he's a jerk.
That's fair.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's
I
fair.
fully agree on that. I fully
Yeah.
agree on that. Basically, Aveline was giving me Black Widow vibes, like Natasha Romanoff.
Ah.
Like she can
Interesting.
kick butt. She knows all these languages, but also she knows she's a good-looking woman and she can use that too if she wants to, you know?
Okay.
Um,
Okay.
as you say, like she was always in control of the situation.
Yeah.
Like her skill set reminds me of Black Widow kind of
Okay.
fighting. Yeah.
Evelyn sitting at a B. Okay,
Right?
now James,
Yeah.
be cool.
As
Be cool.
okay, as we previously discussed in your 24-hour,
Yes.
if this was Black Flag we were talking about, I would adamantly declare that it's a D all day, every day, and twice on Sunday.
Okay.
But Edward,
Yes.
not that he's particularly anywhere in my he's not in my list of favorite assassins at all. I actually think that he's either a B.
Oh.
I'm going to go B or C.
Oh.
Just for he's not a great assassin, but he's a great pirate, and I can't take that away from him really. So for me, it's either a B or a C.
Okay.
I will add. I will fight on this.
Okay.
He's not high. He's not higher than a B
Okay.
because he's not better than
Now-
Altair. He's not on a level with Altair or Ezio, and I definitely don't think he's close to Hathan either.
Now, James, that's a fair opinion, and just to let you know, call is even in our Twitch chat telling you to keep it calm.
Yeah, I saw his name pop up. Yeah,
Yeah,
I'm
yeah.
calm. I'm calm. For now.
You're such a good sport about this. I love hanging out with you, man. All right, James, would you say that was a B or C? Did I hear that right?
It's a B or a C, but no higher than a B.
B or C, no higher than a B.
Oh boy.
Okay. Okay. I'll jump in at this point. Edward for me is, this may surprise James. Edward for me is actually kind of on a similar path in my mind as Aveline, slightly better than Aveline as far as, what I was talking about the just the commitment to the cause and what does it mean to be an assassin. I don't think he was the most committed, like Ezio, like the Ezios or the Altairs. I don't think he was the most committed. I think he was slightly more committed to the cause than Aveline and Connor were. But I get the notion of, okay, he kind of just falls into being an assassin. And some portion of the game for me did kind of feel like, okay, well, if I'm here, I might as well hang out with these guys. And I think he did, I think through the events of the game, he did, identify with it more. And I think he saw the impact of what, that Templar control and Templar order meant, as he's losing friends, as the life that he had built, this golden life, just kind of falls to pieces around him. I think he sees the importance of this. And for the folks at home, this is not a well publicized idea because I think they kind of botched the end of Edward Kenway's life. But to see him go from fairly non-committal, especially at the end of Black Flag, to we learn in oh my god, I'm blanking. Syndicate. Thank you, Syndicate. We learned in Syndicate that he did eventually make his way to the rank of Master Assassin. So I think his biggest sin is what's the phrase? A day late and a dollar short. But I mean, once he was in, I think he was in, and I do think he went above and beyond, the bare minimum of what he could have done to, be with the Assassins during his time with them. But I think he could have done more. I think there was not as much dedication to the cause as we've seen from other Assassins. So I'm actually going to make the argument here for a B+.
I second that. I was literally thinking when you first said Edward, I was like, I guess he's like very kind of similar to Aveline, but then also like you were saying, I feel like the decisions and choices that he made to support the Assassins, not only for them but for himself and everything, and also just the story that he kind of went through during Black Flag, and like from the loss to the things gained and sort of the big sort of philosophy shift. I definitely think it was stronger than Aveline's. It's definitely more memorable than a liberation story, just because of what he went through and who he was. And I think he was a more compelling character than Aveline. And I think for that reason alone, just like being a more compelling character, as well as like you were saying, having at least contributed intentionally a little bit more towards the Brotherhood than Aveline did, as far as what we've seen and know, I definitely would say either B or B plus. I feel fine squeezing him next to Aveline, but if someone else agrees that he may, be able to contribute, like that he had contributed more than Aveline did, then I would also be fine with him with a B plus.
Okay. So we've got somewhere in the BC range. We've got B plus, and we've got a B plus range. Lori, I feel like I just feel through the headphones that you've got a lot to say here.
Yeah, it's gonna be tough to compromise on this one, I think.
Oh God, what are we talking? S tier?
I'm talking straight S tier.
Oh, you are out of your mind.
Okay. Lori,
I have
make your
reasons.
case.
I have reasons.
Make your case.
I'm playing.
Okay. So I'm looking at the list right now.
Yeah.
We have Ezio from Brotherhood in S tier. If I try to compare Edward and Ezio, like the entire arc of the characters, I think they are similar in their development. Knowing that Edward becomes a master assassin, they might have equally influenced the assassins. Big minus point, which I think is totally valid, is, well, we didn't get to see that. And I wish we did.
Yeah.
So yeah, that is a given. I wish we would have seen more of Edward, and how he ended up where he ended up.
Sure.
I think he's one of the most authentic characters. He's one of the most fun characters, and just his story is one of those, probably even more than Ezio's, that like just stucks with me most. If you look at the family trees of our Assassin's Creed protagonists,
Yep.
his influence is all the way up there.
Okay.
I think that's a big point also. And yeah, I mean, it's tough. Like, how do you rate like how somebody comes to becoming an assassin. Like there's vastly different stories for all these protagonists.
Sure.
Some of them have like more personal motives, some of them like, just like get dragged into it if they want to or not. The real question is, what do they make of it? And just the development we didn't see with Connor, which is why I didn't like his character. We see that with Edward.
Okay.
Um,
Okay.
and yeah,
So I'll
for
admit.
me, Edward is all the way up in the S tier.
Okay. I'll admit, I did kind of shift this in my mind without knowing it to, like, not just a good protagonist, but the best assassin as a academic concept. I do happen to agree with you on the concept of relatability, and his relatability as far as what would my own personal experience be with being introduced to this secret war and this brotherhood. It probably looks something fairly similar of I don't know where I fit into this, and it would have to be something that I come to over time. So I'll shift. I'll shift from a B plus to an A. I don't know if I can join
All
you at
right.
S though. I don't know if I can join
Okay.
you at S.
Okay. I think I compromised last time as well. But okay, so I feel that we had more as annoying as Connor is on most levels. I feel like we had growth throughout the game, where the majority of Black Flag, all Edward cares about is the money. That's all he wants. He's essentially Alexios and Cassandra, just in pirate form. He's just
Oh.
up for the highest bidder.
Look.
And I think up until sequence 11, which
Yeah.
is when he becomes an assassin,
Yeah.
that's the first time you play as him as an assassin. You only get 2 more sequences with him, and that's it. Then he dies, and then we find out that actually he was a master assassin outside of his game, outside of his like window. For me personally, I don't think there's much more. I feel like we had better growth with Adewale than we did with Edward. We had better growth with, as much as Arno is a whingy crybaby, he grew throughout his game. They've all grown, whereas Edward for me has just been meh. It's just, I just don't think I was being generous with B, but
Oh.
I thought that was me compromising already. And
Oh my god, I love this.
I just don't know if I can. I don't. Okay. How about a B minus?
Wait, B minus?
Like not, yeah, B minus, not a B plus. But I could go to a B minus. That would be my compromise.
Do you mean an A minus?
No, B minus.
So
So
you
below
downgraded.
average.
So
I
B.
said B or C, right?
Yeah, you said B or C, and now you're cutting off that B and going to a B minus.
Yeah, that's me in the middle. That's me. Just
You're compromising with yourself.
you guys have convinced me enough that he needs to go down a little bit more. That's my compromise.
Okay, so we've done the opposite of what we meant to do in convincing him that he's a worthwhile protagonist. God, I knew this was gonna be fun.
Yeah, this I knew when we were doing protagonists. I knew that potentially this was going to be the only one where we would all. Okay, where I knew that I would differ to everybody else.
Okay. I don't want to leave anybody
I'm-
behind. Charlie, did you?
I'm shifting up to an A with you.
Oh.
So, I I agree with a few of the points that like okay like maybe we didn't see as much development at least within the game as we may have seen in others, but I think that's kind of like a give and a take a little bit where it's just like okay we don't see as much development maybe, but I feel like he still like as a character you're playing as, there are still tons of moments that you enjoy watching him and you enjoy hearing from him and hear him speak and go through things, regardless of like if he's actually changing. Like if you think about it, if you have a character, an Assassin's Creed protagonist, and he doesn't really learn from his actions over the
Yeah.
course of the game, I wouldn't objectively say that would make him a bad protagonist. There are some characters and stories that don't end up learning from their mistakes. They learn other things, but maybe their core flaw or mistake they're never able to surpass or learn from, and there
Sure.
goes on to be a continuation of the same behavior. That in itself can be its own thing. That in itself can be its own lesson learned that some people don't change, or
Sure.
some people learn how to absorb value from other places into their current lifestyle so that maybe they don't have to change so in a large way. But regardless of what kind of character we're talking about, even though Edward is not my favorite one, and maybe I couldn't see him at S tier, and maybe I was going to place him a little bit above Aveline just because from what you were talking about, Andy, with just like his
Yeah.
contributions have a little bit more weight to them than Aveline does.
Sure.
I could push him higher because just like early Ezio, just like Altair, I feel like he still is an icon for a reason. I feel a
Yeah.
lot of people love Edward, and I think how his actual character's story was structured may not be the biggest thing that made him an icon. I think
That's fair.
just like who he was as a person, his personality, his style, his finesse, all of those things, and that made him a really interesting character regardless of his protagonist journey. I feel when you look at the full picture, and I feel like because of that, uh, it makes him just as memorable to me as Altair and AC2 Ezio. So I would
Sure.
put him at an A, even though may not be, from a technical writing standpoint,
Sure.
the most kind of, like uh, tied up with a ribbon sort of story. I do
Yeah.
think he has a lot as a character still to
Okay.
give to the experience.
Okay. Okay. And James, I don't know if you saw this, but Carl had a interesting comment about you. James be like, "Can I create a Z tier?" And I've been giggling about that ever since I saw that pop up.
So well, what my last notion to sway the group
Yes.
in any way,
Yes.
if we could take a protagonist from the series who necessarily didn't align with the assassins. So let's take Eivor, for instance.
Sure.
If we say for the majority of her game, she's not an assassin, she helps out occasionally with assassin jobs, which is what she does. And then all of a sudden, at the end of the game, she decides that she wants to be an assassin. Would we be saying that she was worthwhile as a character? Or would we just be saying that she's not she's more one thing than she is the other? So Edward is more pirate than he is assassin. We see him as more pirate than we do assassin. It's all about the money. It's all about the gold. It's all about the riches for Edward
See,
until it's not.
I'm,
And I think for a majority of his story, we don't actually see it.
I'm gonna fight you on that. I'm gonna fight you on that because that is the second time that you have slandered my boy. It's all about the money. At the beginning of the story, I will give you that it's all about the money, and I do think there's an argument to be made that he was fairly reticent and fairly
Greedy.
fairly hesitant to. Did you say greedy?
Yeah.
I think he was fairly reluctant to really take a look at the world around him and really see what was going on. I think there's an argument to be made that he's kind of like a kid that, you know, you're responsible for. Like, you tell him, like, okay, buddy, like 5 more minutes, and then you got to clean up, and then we got to go home. And he's like, no, I'm going to keep playing. And he keeps focusing on this world that he's built around him of this, you know, this golden age of piracy that is all about the money. But I have backing for this. I can point to different events throughout the games and say, I don't think that describes him all the way through. When we lose, God, this is going to make me cry. One of the few Assassin's Creed scenes that actually makes me cry every time I watch it is Thatch. Call says, gotta go, guys. I love this, though. We'll be watching when we release in full. Take it easy, team. Calm, fearless leader. We salute you, sir. Thank you so much for watching. Appreciate you.
Bye, Cole.
Bye.
I'm going to point to a couple of different scenes here, like when we lose Edward Thatch. I can still hear his voice in my mind when I think about it. In a world without gold, we would have been heroes. And Edward survives that encounter, and Thatch doesn't. And so help me God, if anybody says spoilers in the chat window, the game's like 10 years old. Get out of my chat. In a world without gold, we would have been heroes. That's the last thing that he ever says to him. And you can see the effect that it has on him to the point where he just completely forgets he's in the middle of a fight. And he gets bodied off the ship and knocked into the water. Because he understands that's the first time he really sees, oh my God, all I have been focused on is the money. And beyond that point, we see scenes like, okay, he's going to investigate the assassins. He's going to talk to, I feel so bad, whatever the heck the mentor's name was in 4. I can see his face, but I can't remember his name. Whoever was acting as the assassin's mentor in that area at that time, you know, he has a conversation with him. He starts to learn. He starts to understand, okay, maybe there is more to life than money. And in other events, too, like, God, I'm going to get this wrong. There were the 2 women. There was Mary Read and Anne Bonny. And I think it was Mary that you had to get out of prison. Does anybody remember off the top of their head? Was that Mary or was that Anne Bonny?
I can't remember. Because that's how unforgettable this game.
But think about the scene, though. Think about it. He has a chance, if he's really all about the money, he's had plenty of opportunities up till that point to say, you know what? This ain't worth it. This is not worth the hassle, the threats on my life, the work, the fighting, the violence. This is not worth it. But he goes back into the prison and he carries her out. He carries her out just because it says, okay, this is not, I can't continue to live in this world, you know, this fictional world that I built up around myself when I see all these examples of it crumbling around the edges, like what happens with Thatch, like what happens with whatever her name is. I got to defend my boy on this one.
I
I'm so glad you just said that because I keep thinking of Arthur in Red Dead Redemption 2.
Okay.
And the whole game, the whole arc about Arthur it's a lot about hero or villain, right? But it's also a lot about masculinity.
Sure.
Like, what kind of man am I going to be? And
Sure.
I feel like Edward goes through the exact same thing. He's like, he just feels drawn to, like, hey, I can, like, be successful in this pirate thing. Like, I can make a man of myself, a name of myself. Like, I can build this little empire around me. But he keeps getting pulled, even though I feel like he doesn't even want to. But he keeps being challenged of like, nah, there might be something more. And it just keeps reminding me of Arthur in Red
Okay.
Dead Redemption 2.
Okay.
And I think this is also something that, like, I haven't really I haven't had the words for it, I think, until you just elaborated on that.
Okay. Sure.
But I think what I really like about Edward and his character, like, yeah, he's very early in his development. Um, but there's like I feel like there's a permanent conflict there for sure. In the beginning, he's all about the money, but in the end, he clearly isn't. Um, because of all the stuff that happened throughout, and also in his relationships, you can tell there's maturing there. Like he keeps being challenged of like, how am I gonna handle this? What kind of man am I gonna be?
Yeah.
Like he's fighting. I feel like Edward's constantly fighting like a side of himself or something
Sure.
to not be somebody who's just about the money. Um, but it's hard.
Okay. Okay. What do we do here, guys?
Ah,
We're split
I
from S to A to what was it? B minus.
I, d- I if we look at the tier list, I don't think he's on Altair's level. I don't think he's on AC2's level, Ezio. I just don't think he's quite there in charisma, style, aura. I think he falls short on all of those.
Okay.
But again, as I don't like to be the roadblock to move on, I will yield once again
Can hear the pain in his voice.
and allow Edward to creep up higher on our list than he deserves to be. But you guys put him where you feel necessary, and I will cry myself to sleep tonight.
All right. Well, James has drawn his line in the sand, but he's willing to move on for the sake of time. I'm saying A. I believe Charlie, I heard A from you as well. Lori.
Charlie's just had to step out for a couple of minutes. He'll be back soon.
Oh, did he really? Did I miss that message?
Yeah.
I think I remembered
By
A
the
from him.
way, are Naue and Yasuke missing in this, or am I just
No,
not
they
seeing
are
them?
Oh,
there.
they're there.
I've seen them.
They're there.
Oh, okay.
Are we gonna sit at A? Just to show that we're willing to compromise in James's general direction.
A is the absolute minimum for me. I'd
Okay,
be okay with an A.
we'll do A.
And A is the absolute maximum of there as well. So that works quite well.
Okay. We will let Charlie join us again whenever he's ready, assuming he is going to join us again. We're just going to keep rolling with the three of us then. This brings us to the game, or the tier list that I pulled up does actually give Adewale his own entry. He is the star of the Freedom Cry DLC, so we do have a 10-ish hours, 10-15 hours where we're playing as Adewale. Do we feel like that's enough? Do we skip to somebody else? What do you guys think?
I was going to ask. So, out of the characters here, who are the DLCs? Because we've got Adewale, Jack the
Adewale's
Ripper.
here. Jack the Ripper's here. It's a little
Who's
hard
in
to
between
see.
Evie, and Jack?
I was just gonna say that's technically also Evie because they're considering her a separate entry for her role as the protagonist of the Jack the Ripper DLC. So that's young Evie and old Evie.
So I don't think DLCs should be.
I'd be willing to hear that out.
Personally, I also don't think that thinking about it now, I'm not entirely sure the Chronicles should be in either.
My only problem with Chronicles, I've played Russia. I know, I started to play China. I never touched India. Do you guys have enough experience with these to be able to talk about them?
I don't, because I'm not a big 2D fan side scroller, so I steered clear of them.
Okay, so James has no experience. I've got limited. Lori, did you play them at all?
I started China and India, but turns out I suck at 2D, so I didn't continue.
Okay,
Okay.
so I
Okay.
think
So we'll
DLCs
yes.
and Chronicles are out.
So
Okay,
that takes care
yeah, I'm
of
fine with that.
5. So we're losing Adewale, we're losing Old Evie, we're losing Jack the Ripper. Oh no, that's 6. Yeah, Adewale, Old Evie, Jack the Ripper, and all 3 of the Chronicles protagonists. We will not be including in our tier list, but for the folks watching at home, if you want to duke this out, have fun. This is a free website that you can go to, make your own tiers, and share them with us. God knows we're on every freaking social media website known to man. Make up your own tier list. Fight with us. We love to have conversations about this stuff. I have not been this happy in like weeks being able to talk about this stuff. So we'd love to have a conversation. If you guys think different about us, I'm just going to throw that out there right now since we're at something of a midpoint. We're going to skip Adewale. However, that brings us to Mr. I Make My Own Look, Shay Patrick Cormac of Assassin's Creed Rogue. And remember, this is good protagonist.
I believe that Shay is a B class protagonist. I think he's obviously he gives us a new look and a new perspective on are we the good guys?
Okay.
And it's somewhat I've spoken about for the last week or so is that you're generally the winner decides on who is the good guy and who is the bad guy.
Sure.
So both ideologies are close enough, but far apart. I think as a character, he's written really well.
Okay.
I think his voice acting's fantastic as well.
Mm-hmm.
I think gameplay wise, it was too much like mechanically wise. I think he was too much like Edward.
Well, remember, this is just him as a protagonist.
Yeah, no, I feel like he was too he was too he was too assassin like to be a Templar, and I don't know how I feel about his whole portrayal. Like I understand it, but I don't necessarily know how I feel about it. So
Okay.
for me,
Okay.
for that reason, it's a B because yes, you could argue that he didn't believe what the assassins were doing, but there's a better way of going about trying to convince them than jumping ship and hunting them down. So for me, it's a B. It's a B tier.
Lori, what are your thoughts?
I think I would agree on most of that. I would probably put him a bit higher, a little bit on higher on the tier list, A or A plus. Um, Probably because I just appreciate the new perspective more. For that, like for the same reason that I liked Hatham so much, I like Shay so much. Um,
Sure.
yeah, I think it was really like if you really look at the entire franchise, like it's very unique and kind of a big deal.
Uh-huh.
Um, so I think yeah, first of all, it makes Shay as a character very interesting, and it just yeah, it hooks you as a player. Because I mean, at this point, we've all played several Assassin's Creed games, and here you are sitting down thinking you're gonna play another one, and let's see which kind of asshole we're fighting this time and what kind of
Mm-hmm.
weapons we're going to have. And,
Mm-hmm.
and then it's like, oh, wait a second. That is not what I expected.
Sure. Sure.
Um, so yeah, I would probably put him on A or A plus.
A or A plus. Okay. Personally, I'm sitting at a solid A. I don't know if I can go as high as A plus. I I think there's something to be said. I think James and I may disagree in terms of percentages, but I think there is something to be said for the notion of, okay, you do disagree with the assassins. Maybe there could have been just a little bit more effort to work within the structure of the organization. Not that he gave it no effort whatsoever, because I seem to remember several cutscenes worth of conversations where he said, like, hey guys, we got to pull back from this before he actually jumped ship. But kind of like I was saying about Haytham, I didn't realize that whole Haytham backstory when I originally played Rogue. So experientially, this was the first protagonist I ever had experience of who was strong enough in himself to be able to say, I can't do this anymore. I can't be a part of this. And that was my first, like experience, like lived experience of, okay, the assassins are wrong. And being able to look at it from that morally gray perspective was really a phenomenal experience for me. So I'm sitting at a solid A. So if memory serves, that puts us one vote for a B, one vote for an A, and one vote for an A or A plus.
Yeah, well, in that case, I'm happy to compromise and go with A, since that seems to be the middle ground.
James, have you recovered from your compromise on Edward Kenway to compromise to an A for Shay?
Potentially, I'm don't know. I'm just not. It's more of
What
a-
about that? I would probably be even like I would be fine to put him in an A minus.
Ooh, interesting counteroffer.
I could get behind that because I don't, and maybe it's a personal preference. Maybe it's a personal preference. I just didn't like. I don't feel like he tried enough. Like I know that he did try. I just don't think that he tried enough.
I'd hear you out on that.
And like I know that I know that if no matter how bad I feel trying to convince somebody to do something, I'm not going to run to my greatest enemy who has vowed to destroy me and wipe me off the face of the planet. I don't know if I'd go to them and go, do you know what? I'll give you a hand. I don't know if I could get to that level.
Well,
And I don't think he tried enough. But I would go an A minus. That's
at the risk of sounding nitpicky, I seem to remember a narrative beat where he actually expected the Templars to kill him when they first linked up, that it was the assassins who thought they killed Che, but the Templars picked him up, and Haytham was the one who was able to gently turn him. So I don't know if I necessarily agree with that characterization of like, okay, I'm just going to come running to them and say, please open your doors for me.
If you can be turned so easily, were you ever really aligned in the first place?
They tried to kill him.
I'm just saying.
I don't know if I'd call that easy turning.
I'm just saying. Let's get A minus. That way we can we can swiftly move on to the crybaby of the franchise.
All right, I am putting it in, locking it in, and making it official at an A minus tier. We have Mr. I Make My Own Luck. All right, everybody's favorite whiny baby, Arno Victor Dorian.
It's a D.
Jesus.
a D.
Yeah.
Right out
I'm
the gate.
fine with that. Put him in
Straight
D.
away. It's a D.
I'm not so easily swayed. One of you guys
He
has to
had
make
one
a
of-
case.
He had one of the worst stories. If we pulled Connor up on the amount of times he whinged and he moaned, you damn best believe that Arno gets pulled up on it too, because he moaned profusely about everything.
Okay. So-
Like, and to the point where it actually takes away from the story the amount that he complains about.
Okay. Okay.
I just
So,
don't. He
based on whining.
just based on whining, he's a D. But just generally, I don't think he doesn't have the charisma. He doesn't have the sarcasm. He doesn't have the humor. He doesn't have the wit. He literally doesn't have anything going for him at all. And I've made points before that, like, I'll say it, but Origin's only redeeming quality is Bayek, whereas Unity, Arno makes it worse.
Okay.
Like, for me personally, he makes the game worse. You could stick any of the other protagonists in his spot,
Yeah.
and the game would be fantastic. But he's so miserable and so, just can't deal with him.
Okay. Lori, is that the majority of your objection here too? He's just a big old whiny baby.
I don't hate him as much.
I don't hate him. I just don't like the whining.
But yeah, I definitely know what you mean. I definitely know what you mean.
Okay.
And that's why I would put him in a D. He's exchangeable. Like
Okay.
it could be anybody like playing through that, going through that. So I don't know, like yeah.
Okay.
Out of all the other characters that I see on the list and that are about to come,
Yeah.
he's the last one I would pick up to play. So that is a clear D.
D tier. Okay. Hear me out. C.
Why?
Does he whine? Yes. I will not argue that. In my perspective, does he whine more than Connor? I don't know. I think that I saw a better ability to ideologically align himself with what being an assassin was supposed to be. Do I think that we'd hang out for beers? Probably not. But as far as his ability to operate as an assassin, he says, you see him throughout the game say, okay, let me learn more about this, let me get more into this, let me understand what my father gave his life for. Okay, I see what my father gave his life for, but I also see this love of my life who's so firmly in this other camp. And instead of just, I have to assume he would characterize it as, instead of just blindly following into this line of, okay, we're just going to continue on in this war that's been going on for how many thousands of years, he sees himself, and I'm inclined to agree with him, as one of the first people to say, okay, is there a world in which the fighting stops? Because the two groups and the two ideologies are so freaking close to each other, is there a world in which we can stop the fighting to benefit the civilians and the general population who are suffering as much as they are, especially in the time of the French, the French Revolution? The fact that he's willing to ask that, the fact that he's willing to go against, the very person that brought him into this, he stands up for himself. He's willing to hear other people out, say, okay, yes, I do believe that freedom is important enough to fight for it, and it's enough to make me want to join this order of assassins, But I'm not just going to follow everybody. I'm not just going to let my friend Pierre Belec poison Mirabeau. Again, if you say spoilers, I will digitally hit one of you in the chat. He's still willing to stand up and say, no. I'm not blindly following you. Just because you're the one that technically brought me into this order, that does not mean... James, I swear to God. I will reach through this damn screen.
Who is James and where does he live?
Oh, I'm going to find out. I got a plane ride in my future. I think D is... like I said, do I think he's a perfect protagonist? No. Honestly, the more... if he hadn't typed it, I was going to... Nikki, don't do that to me. I'm agitated enough as it is right now.
That's my partner. She's literally sat upstairs just giggling to herself.
Oh, I believe it.
As we're disagreeing with each other.
Actually, here's a new one. You know, before, James, you said we did such a bad job convincing you that you actually lowered your grade. I'm doing such a good job convincing myself. I'm actually going to escalate one and say B.
No.
That's not allowed. That's not
no.
allowed.
He is literally a poor man's Romeo.
A poor man's Romeo. My God. Okay, well, is there some response to the points that I brought up about his ability to operate as an effective protagonist, or are we just can we not get past the whining? If that's the case, that's the case.
I think like the point you made about some other protagonists in how they are, how much they care or don't care, even about like the assassins and their ideology. Arno's like there's worse characters than Arno.
Okay.
Just when it comes to like motives, and I do agree that he's more reflected than some other protagonists in like even having the capability of like asking like, can we just like screw all of this?
Yeah.
Yeah, still, I gotta say, in comparison to all the other characters, I would still put him the lowest.
Lowest possible
don't
tier,
see-
D tier.
Yeah. I don't see him higher than Connor.
Really?
I have to agree
Fascinating.
with what we've got on there so far.
Yeah.
And what we've yet to come. I just don't think he doesn't have the resolve, the passion that has been seen by the others and Edward so
The
far.
others and Edward.
And I don't think he can see he's as resourceful or resilient as others yet to come.
Okay.
I think he complains mostly about his situation and is unprepared to do anything about it. I just think a D for me.
Look, if I can follow in anyone's example, I can follow in James' example about, you know, understanding that I have stood my ground, I have made my peace, but the will of the majority wins out here. As much as these next few seconds of movement are going to pain me, we're going to put Arno in D tier.
Don't worry, we're going to clip this and we're going to put it on
who's
TikTok.
on C there again? I can't see.
That's
who's
Connor.
On C.
C is Connor.
That's Connor. Okay, yeah, no,
God,
yeah, it's gotta be something lower than C. If you want to call it C minus or D or whatever, it's gotta be lower.
God,
Are you good? You're shaking.
This pained me to have to do that, but like James said, the will of the majority. I made my peace. You know, I said my piece, and we continue on. I do just want to let you guys know that I do have a hard out in about an hour, so we're gonna We're gonna see how far we can get here
We can.
with
Yeah,
these next few.
maybe if we can't complete it, we can finish it some other
Yeah.
time.
Okay, that I'm more than
Um,
happy with that. There is a download button I'm seeing here, so I'm more than happy to save our progress. And
Well, I can do Jacob and Evie at the same time if you like.
are we gonna do Jacob and Evie at the same time?
Not in the same slot, but I can do them both at the same time
Oh,
because I
okay.
think they're because
Go ahead.
I feel like they're so opposite to each other.
Yeah.
Obviously Jacob's the brawler, the punch first and ask questions later. Evie is clearly the mastermind behind it all. But for me, Jacob is a tier and Evie is a B tier. I just think he's much more funnier. He's much more easygoing.
Okay.
He's a little bit more resourceful than she is.
Okay.
I think he suits London to an absolute T.
Okay.
Whereas I feel like at times she feels out of place, and she deserves to be in some grand palace somewhere. Whereas he's meant to be on the mean streets of London,
Okay.
punching his way through. And so I think he's a much better written character. So for me, he's an A class, and she's a B, possibly even C.
Okay.
But I would, yeah.
I have a question for you. Based on your, at least part of your criticism of Edward Kenway, I'm a little surprised to hear you see kick Jacob so high. Because
So Jacob is actually one of my favorite assassins.
I got nothing but love for Jacob. I love playing him. I love the game. But if you're talking about, protagonist, given your understanding of Edward, I'm curious as to why the same lens does not apply to Jacob.
Because it's not Edward. I I don't know, because there are so many, I'm sure as we'll go through the list, there's many protagonists that would fit the Edward like frame, as it were. But for me, like okay, sorry, I've got A and A minus. I would put him at an A minus. Sorry, not an A.
So Jacob at an A minus, Evie at a B.
Evie at a B. Yeah.
Okay.
So I understand why people like Edward. I'm not a biggest fan, but for that same reason, I like Jacob because he didn't try to be something different. He knew what he was. He knew what his strengths were, and he just was like, right, let's. I like the I'm going to act now, and when the factory's blown up and there's smoke everywhere, then I'm going to ask, oh, could I have done this when I've already done the big, massive blow stuff up, smash through everything? It's kind of how I go through life already, but for me, I
Mickey,
think
can
I
we confirm
related. I think I related to him more because of that, because I felt like he was representing me as a person. So for me,
Okay.
that's why I look at Jacob slightly different.
Okay. Nikki, I can 100% confirm. Thank you. Appreciate it. All right. So we've got Jacob at an A minus, Evie at a B, potentially a C. I'm actually gonna flip that. Evie for me.
That's what I was gonna say.
Really? Okay.
Mm.
Evie for me is sitting at an A. I could hear A minus, but my initial impression was A. She's incredibly dedicated to the order. She's the one who's calling out Jacob like, hey, we got to make sure we're doing this and we're doing this right. And if you're talking about part of what makes a protagonist a good protagonist. There has to be some level of, not intelligence, but forethought to it. With the amount of, years and training and resources that have been placed into making Jacob an effective assassin, he just kind of treats it like it's a toy. And I never got the feeling that he had any real sense of commitment to the Assassin Brotherhood specifically. I always got that feeling from Evie. I never really got that from him. Like, if you had just, friendly old guy around the corner had taught Jacob how to fight when he was a kid and set him loose in the streets of London, do I still think he would have made the Rooks? Yes. Do I still think that he would have implemented his own version of what justice should have looked like in steampunk London? Yes. But it's just that attachment to the Assassin Order, I never saw that. So I'm sitting with him at a B. Evie, the intelligence is there. She's a little stuck in her ways. She's a little hesitant to question whether or not her way is the best way. She'll question whether or not her brother's way is the best way. But I don't know if I ever got that feeling that she would have listened to anybody else. Like, I feel like I remember a couple of times where Henry Green kind of tried to call her out, despite the fact that, like, brother was hopelessly smitten with her. Despite that, he would still try to call out, like, oh, is this really the right way to go? And she's like, no, because I'm me, because I am as smart as I think I am. This is what we're gonna do. This is how we're gonna go. So I could see her at an A-. My initial thought was A, but that's my summary. Is I'm gonna flip what James is saying. Evie at an A-. Jacob at a B. And Lori, you said you were thinking something similar?
Yeah, I would also flip them. I don't see either of them in A. I'd be
Okay.
happy with A-.
Okay.
Because I definitely want to put them under Assassin's Creed 1.
Sure.
Yeah, I think Evie is. I think that the twins just have different roles, and that's
Okay.
probably what Ubisoft was intending to do. Like,
Sure.
we're like, we'll let them be twins so we can kind of like together they're a whole assassin. I feel like that's what's happening here.
That's fair.
Like,
That's fair.
we have Evie, who's a good leader, a good strategist, who has the heart and the drive for the assassins, and we have Jacob, who is the executor, who gets shit done,
Sure.
and who really changes stuff on the streets out there.
Okay.
Whereas Evie is the one, like, not only, but more like the one pulling the strings in the background. So I feel like the two of them need to be a team to be one functioning assassin.
Okay.
I would put them either in the same tier or Evie higher than Jacob, in
Okay.
A- or B.
Okay.
I hear what you're both saying.
Yeah.
But that being said, I feel like Evie she is bound by the Brotherhood. She is bound by the Creed. Whereas I feel like Jacob is set free by it. Like, she worries too much about what is right and how's it going to work and
Okay.
the logistics of stuff. Whereas I feel like, again, this is something I do very frequently myself, is he sees something and he's like, right, we need to get from point A to point B.
Sure.
And I'm just gonna wing it. That's the best way I can. We haven't got time to think about the creed or the pillars we haven't got time for that. We have to act. And I feel like she's bound and she's restricted by it. She's too intelligent, and that is
Okay.
almost holding her back. Whereas he is such a free spirited. He doesn't he because he's not as clever as her. He's allowed to just wing it and be like, right, let's 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 smash through this window. Let's pretend to be a dead body. Let's do this.
Sure.
Let's just see what happens. And 9 times out of 10, it works out for him. But
Okay. Okay.
and that's why I would have him higher.
The fact that it happens to work out for him honestly just makes him look a little weaker, in my opinion. Like, one of the things that I'm questioning right now, like, in my view, hypothetically, if you only set Evie out in that setting, in that time, to operate as an assassin, I think she would have gotten stuff done. Do I think it would have been maybe harder than it needed to be sometimes? Yes. Do I think that she would have been helped if her brother was there? Sure. But I think she could have operated independently. Quite frankly, I feel like if you show Jacob a shiny enough toy, he's going to forget about his, hidden blades at home, and he's going to go play with the shiny toy. Like, if you set him on the city by himself, who knows what he would have done, honestly? Would he have cared about the Brotherhood? Would he have cared about the Creed? I can't say for sure.
I think we learn like from the straight away from the offset of Syndicate that one cares more than the other about the Creed. That's not necessarily the case. Not that they care more, is that they both have very distinctive things of going about it. Whereas, so Evie reminds me of
Sounds like he has ADHD.
yeah. Evie reminds me of the teacher's pet. Like, she follows the rules. The rules are there for a reason. They need to be. We follow these for a reason. Whereas Jacob sees the rules, understands the rules, but when it comes to saving lives or doing something or getting some information, the rules don't matter. It's like going to war. There's no rules in war. There's no oh well, you've run out of bullets. Let me wait for you to load your gun. There is none of that. And he sees that, and for me, he's able to act on that, and he's able to get it done despite being faithful to the Creed. It looks different than it does to Evie, but if he had his own game, we'd know no different. It only looks so drastic because he stood next to someone who is so straight arrowed, whereas he's not so much.
Okay. So we seem to be at a bit of an impasse. What are we gonna do here, guys?
I think if we could agree that I personally don't think they should both be on the same level, but you guys are saying that Evie should be A-. I think Jacob should be A-, so why not just stick both of them on A-?
Split the baby, as
I'd
it
be
were.
Yeah, I'd be fine with that.
I could get behind it. Let's do it. Jacob, A-. Evie, A-. So we skip Adewale, we skip Old Evie, we skip Jack the Ripper, we skip the 3 Chronicles protagonists. That brings us to Dad of the Century, Bayek.
Daddy Bayek.
I think it's an A plus.
I was gonna say A+ too, honestly.
I was gonna say A, but if you're both on A plus, I could get behind that.
Yeah, I think it doesn't need explain for anyone who knows. I don't think it really needs explaining. As I said earlier, I think Origin's only redeeming quality is Bayek. He is just he is probably their best written protagonist since Ezio. So
Sure.
I think it's an A plus all day, every day.
Okay. For me, Bayek again is very approachable. He's very understandable. The idea of losing your son and understanding that that is the first, peek behind the curtain that you have, that this homeland that you love so much, this land of Egypt, is really being set upon and preyed upon by these corrupt individuals, and then turning that personal tragedy into this lifelong fight for freedom of the people so that they don't have to experience what he did. A plus. I don't, because part of what I'm asking myself in these discussions is, okay, if I say A plus, what would have had to be different to get him from A plus to S? And I'm not sure I have a good answer. But it's just it's based on like feeling. I'm thinking like A plus.
Yeah, I think for me, he's. I personally don't think there's anyone left that is quite S tier, but I think Bayek is probably as close to being there as you can get without actually being there. I think he conveys emotion
Mm-hmm.
really, really well. Like you feel every you feel every hurt with him, and you feel every pain with him.
Uh-huh.
Um, so I think A plus. That's a fair. I think that's a fair estimate for him.
Okay. Now, Laura, you were thinking more of a A range?
Well, answering your question from earlier, what
Yeah.
we speak against S is that, understandably so, though, he is very much out for revenge.
Mm. Okay.
Um, Again, we understand why as we play the game,
Sure.
but is that the ideology of the assassins, you know? So I think his character is amazing, very complex, understandable, relatable character, that is fun to play.
Okay.
But I think he doesn't have the assassin potential that Ezio had.
Okay.
Um, that's why,
I would agree.
well, I would put him in A, but I'm fine with A plus also.
You'd hear A plus. All right. Our boy Bayek, daddy of the century, A plus protagonist. Now, again, we can skip this one if you guys want to. Technically, the next person we're supposed to tackle is Aya. Now, we do technically play as Aya for, I think it was a grand total of like 4 or 5 hours in the course of
Is it?
Origins. So there's a lot of cutscenes with her, there's a lot of experience with her, and there is some gameplay with her. But are we going to talk about Aya?
I'm not too sure if we the thing is if we spoke about Hatham and his
Right.
gameplay role is about 4 hours long.
Yeah,
I can't see why we wouldn't speak about her.
that's fair.
Yeah.
That's fair.
I personally think she's an A. She's an A or an A minus. For me,
Okay.
I think she's a little bit harsh on Bayek. She's quite mean.
Okay.
Um, she just I just don't think that she's a very particularly nice person. But
Okay.
again, she lost her son, so you can kind of understand she's consumed by vengeance and as well. So
Yeah.
they both go about it slightly different. But I think an A or an A, is she on the same level as Altair? That's the question, and I don't think she is. So for me, an A minus. Talk myself out of a
Okay.
rank there, I think.
James, with Aya sitting at a solid A minus, Lori, your response.
Mm, I think I would put, since Bayek is on an A plus, I would put her in A, one tier underneath him.
Okay.
I do think she's on the same level as Altair. Her story and circumstances are vastly different from Altair's. But I think that like Origins is kind of key to the whole Assassins story,
Okay.
and Bayek and Aya, both of them play a huge role in that.
Sure.
So both of them, first of all, should be pretty much high up. But yeah, I would put her one tier under Bayek. I would put her in A.
So one vote for A, one vote for A minus. I'm gonna say A. Kind of for a lot of the same points that Lori's talking about. Do I consider her on a similar plane as Altair? Yes. I do consider the impact that she had on the founding of the Hidden Ones, her effectiveness as an operator, the idea of being able to turn the tragedy of her son's death into, this mission for good that long outlived her. To James's point, that's always going to be my one, qualm about her is it's almost like she's over invested. Like for anybody at home, and even for James and Lori, I don't know if I've ever talked much about this, when I've been in streams with you guys, but I work as a therapist by day. And one of the things that they always beat into our heads in school when I was learning how to do this was your first obligation as a therapist has to be to yourself. Because if you get so invested in the mission of helping other people, you will burn out. You will lose out on the ability to form meaningful relationships and form a meaningful life on your own. And yes, you may take excellent care of your patients, but that's not a life to lead. That's a very lonely, very emotionally taxing life. So your first obligation has to be you. There has to be a sense of self-preservation. I always thought that Bayek understood that. And
Really?
Yes, I always got the feeling that Bayek understood that there had to be that sense of self-preservation, because how many overtures did he make to Aya, like, hey, we got this. Like, we took care of this revenge. You and me, let's go home. I want to go home with my wife. With Aya, no, there's always more targets. There's always more to fight. There's always more, and I can't allow myself any sort of life outside of being a hidden one. And I think that led to a lot of the personal prickliness that James was talking about. So for me, it's an A.
Okay, so I originally said either an A or an A minus.
Okay.
And I talked myself out of an A.
Okay.
Um,
What do you see now?
Right.
I don't think, for as much as I dislike Edward generally, do I think that she has as much as the three of them already on A? I'm not entirely sure, but again, as the majority is calling for an A, I'm more than happy to take a back seat on this one.
Okay, we'll sit at an A. All right. We move Aya to A. Alright, now this is where it gets a little tricky, and I don't know how you guys want to handle this personally, but I will tell you that on my side of things, the next one is technically supposed to be Cassandra. I don't know if I can honestly look at Assassin's Creed Odyssey and see a huge difference between the two of them as protagonists. Like, people will talk about things like the voice acting, and there were little bits and pieces throughout the game about, which romantic partners could they take. But all of the major story beats were essentially the same. So, if you ask me, the tier list for both of them is the same. I'm going B or C. Honestly, I'm not that crazy about them as protagonists. I think that, to the point that we've been making about a lot of these other protagonists, were they really assassins? I never really understood that. I mean, I could see an argument for them being assassins more than Eivor being an assassin. But I don't think that makes it a strong argument.
Yeah.
For either of them being assassins. They seem to be more, okay, well, you and I happen to be going in the same direction, and we happen to have similar interests and similar goals, so I guess we'll hang out, and I guess, we'll collaborate on missions with intel and resources. But I'm going... God, I don't know. I think I gotta swing at C, honestly.
Okay, so for me, the next two being Odyssey and Valhalla, I think they're easy to rank.
Okay.
And I think essentially this could be something that we all agree on.
Okay.
They are neither they aren't assassins. They aren't assassins turned Templars. They're essentially they are the two most removed from the order as possible. So I would put however, if you want to just do Cassandra, that's fine, and female Eivor, that's fine. But I think either way they belong in D, and I think that's where it should be, because they're, as we've said before, there are no bad protagonists, but
No.
when you take things out of voice acting and well, that's essentially it, because they all four of them, they all play the same, they all do the same motions, they all do the same actions, they all do the same cutscenes. There's nothing different that discerns them away other than the voice acting.
Yeah.
So I think it's a D ranking for me personally.
All right, I'm swinging low with a C, and James said, "Hold my beer." He's going with a D. Lori, I know you said previously in that 24-hour stream that you got a lot of love for Odyssey. Tell me, how much have we hurt you?
I'm not sure where to put them because
Okay.
we're not talking about the game, we're talking about the protagonists.
Ooh.
I'm trying to keep that in mind,
Sure.
because I'm mature and all. um, well, I mean, it was said that Cassandra is the canonical choice, which I haven't felt much of. Like, I don't see why. I don't see a difference in the game. Like, they just said
Yeah.
that. Like,
Right.
okay, it
Yeah,
doesn't
sure.
make a big difference. So they might as well just not have said that. um, yeah, voice acting, I do think it makes a big difference. I've spent a lot of time playing Odyssey. I've played it
Okay.
twice.
Okay.
I've played both characters completely through. I've also played the Atlantis DLC, which I think was phenomenal.
Sure.
Um, are they assassins? Technically not, but they follow an ideology. If somebody would, like, if an assassin would come to them and say, like, I'm an assassin, this is what we do, they would be like, yeah, let's go. I'm on. That's what I'm doing too. You know what I mean?
So you think it was
Yeah,
more like missed opportunity that they're not assassins as opposed to intentional choice? Is that what I'm hearing?
Yeah, like I do think they act like assassins
Okay.
would.
Okay.
um
do
yeah,
you not think?
hmm?
I was just going to say, do you not think that they act more like mercenaries because they
I mean they
there's
are. They are
yeah,
mercenaries.
so there's nothing I would argue there's nothing really um assassin like about them really.
I mean, surely they
Okay.
they they do follow a moral compass. They don't just take any contracts. They take contracts that are definitely helping the like like Robin Hood kind of style that are more like helping the weak, and like
Yeah,
they're definitely targeting corruption. They're
I would agree.
definitely targeting crime, like criminal organizations, let's call it that.
Yeah.
So there's a clear heroic motive there that generally aligns with the assassins. They are
Okay.
after people with a lot of power because they don't want them to have too much power because they see the corruption. Um, Also, I think they play a big role in the entire franchise as we see a lot of the Isu in the games, and they might have the strongest Isu connection out of
Okay.
all the protagonists, which I think is also a kind of big deal. I mean they're like aren't they half Isu or quarter Isu or something like that?
Something like that, yeah. I can't
Um
remember.
I think what's his name? Pythagoras is their dad and he's an
Yes.
Isu, right? So that would make them half Isu.
Yes. Yeah, I think I
Um
remember that, yeah.
so it's pretty remarkable that half Isu would follow the morals of assassins. Um, I think lore-wise, that's pretty remarkable.
Okay.
I do think Cassandra is a lot more likable than Alexios, and honestly, I can't even like tell you why exactly.
Okay. Okay.
This is purely based on vibes. Like I spent a lot of time and it was just more enjoyable to play Cassandra. She just feels more alive.
Okay.
Um than Alexios, but like I wouldn't be able to make like a big point on that. So if you want to put them in the same tier, like I can't argue that.
Okay.
Um,
As far as what tier? What are you thinking?
that's the question. Um, I would definitely because of the strong Isu connection,
Mm-hmm.
I would definitely put them way higher than C or D. And
Okay.
and like I wouldn't consider it to be an argument that they're not assassins. I do think they strongly follow assassin creeds. Um, even though like they might not use that word.
Sure. Sure.
So I would have put them in A or A plus. Like they're pretty high up for me.
Well, shit.
Oh,
Yeah.
oh.
All right,
Just,
James is in pain, but it sounds like he's
no,
got something to say.
I'm
I
just,
mean, let's
I'm,
talk about it. Let's talk about it.
yeah, this is. I'm just trying to work out. Do you see the same for Eivor? Do you see Eivor as high?
Well, for the same reasons as I would put Cassandra and Alexios pretty high, the Isu connection there that is very, very lore interesting. I would put her high, but not as high as those two.
Okay.
Okay.
What about you, Andy? Where would you put Eivor?
Well, I had originally said Alexios and Cassandra at C.
Okay.
Eivor Honestly, I'm going D.
Okay.
The whole idea about Eivor, like we talked about other protagonists, not necessarily aligning strongly with being assassins. Eivor just seems annoyed every time the assassins open their mouths, unless it's Hytham in the village, giving you targets and giving you rewards for the
Yeah.
targets. It seems like every time any mention of the assassins is there, Eivor just kind of clams up or just says like, "That's stupid. That's not important. The only thing I care about is my village. The only thing I care about is making sure that my village and my people have a chance to establish a home and a life here. I'm actively going to fight against this idea that I'm going to be one of you, like, oh, you gave me a cool blade and I'm not letting you have that back." But I'm
Yeah.
not I'm not seeing anything other than, an active pushback against the assassins. So I'm going D for Eivor and
Okay.
C for Cassandra and Alexios.
I'm just trying to establish if it was easier for us to pinpoint where Avon should be, because
Where would you put her? Where would you put her?
because I would put, so I never played as female Avon, but I would put Avon as a concept in D, because as Andy said, I think they literally are the furthest away from an assassin, and every time they're mentioned, it's like, well, that's not, that doesn't sneaking around and assassinating people isn't really what a Viking would do,
True.
really.
True. Very
So
true.
I love the idea. I just don't think it works, and I think how you play the character doesn't differ whether it's a female or a male. They still play the same. I just don't think they're a likable character, really. And I think I personally would put both both well, all three of them, Cassandra, Alexios, and Eivor, I would put all in D.
I think kind of for the same reason it sounds like Lori is talking about the idea of, okay, maybe we're not assassin in name, but we are assassin in action and by what we do. That's what makes Cassandra and Alexios stick out a little bit higher for me personally. But yeah, I'm not crazy about putting them higher than C.
Oh, look who's back.
Ah,
Hello.
hello.
Hi.
Charlie, you've come at an interesting time.
Where we at?
As it stands right now, we're kind of handling technically four all at once. We're handling Cassandra, Alexios, and female and male Eivor.
Oh, brother.
We're in something of a pickle right now. If you want to just stick with Cassandra and Alexios first, I'm personally swinging at C. James said hold my beer and swung at D. And I believe Lori came in high with an A. Was that an A,
For,
Lori, or was that A plus?
But yeah, A plus or A. Like A plus for Cassandra, but both
Okay.
of them in A.
Both of an A. So that's what it stands right now. Charlie, what are your thoughts, man?
Um. Oh man.
Oh,
Uh-oh.
Okay.
I think we broke Charlie.
yeah.
So
It's
Alexios was being considered for what? For what again?
Alexios and Cassandra, a lot of us are kind of bundling them together because if you look at it, like,
Okay.
yeah, the voice acting's different and the, like, romantic
same
partners are
character,
different, but the
yeah.
story beats are all pretty much identical.
Yeah.
So they're kind of all being bundled together. I say C, James says D, Lori says A or A plus.
Um, I would say C. Um, I think I would say C, but not D, because I feel like oh oh um
You okay,
Sounds
buddy?
like a
but
real struggle.
I'm
Yeah.
like thinking
Yeah.
about like Eivor too. I'm like um okay okay.
You picked a heck of a time to come back into this conversation.
I know, like, oh
Yeah.
man. Uh Wait, can I hear like a brief summary of the reasons why you all chose what you chose first?
Sure.
Yeah.
James, tell me if this is a not fair categorization, but I'll put the two of us kind of get together. There doesn't, for Cassandra and Alexios, there's not really a strong argument to say that they are assassins. They seem more just
Mhm.
like mercenaries who happen to, out of convenience, say, yeah, sure, we'll come along with the assassins and we'll collaborate with them and share things with them. Um, to Laurie's point, just because you're an assassin in name doesn't mean that you're not an assassin by action. So there is something redeeming there, but
Okay.
Yeah,
they
so
seem
so
more self-interested to James and I. But Laurie, go ahead. What would your summary be?
Yeah, short summary. Basically, I was disagreeing on the point that they're furthest away from the assassins for two reasons. One of them being that they are clearly targeting corruption. They are clearly having a moral compass. Like yes, they are mercenaries, but they take contracts that clearly follow an ideology. Um, and the other point being that they have the strongest Isu connection out of all of these characters. Um, since I think Pythagoras is their father, um, which would make them half Isu. And like considering the whole debate between Templars and Assassins coming from at some point Isu is enslaving humans, I think it really scratches on the core of the lore. Yeah.
Okay.
So, oh, I think I didn't say that I would put Aver in B.
So we all agree that wherever Cassandra and Alexios are, Avor's lower.
Yes, I think we all agree on that.
Okay.
Yeah.
So we got some common ground. Charlie,
Um,
either help us out or add to the chaos.
okay, so hear me out. Hear me out. So, I'm feeling B.
Oh Jesus! All right.
Well,
um,
I genuinely thought this
Okay.
would be the easiest one.
um, the
Okay,
reason
why?
why I'm feeling B, because like I understand Laurie's point. Like
Okay.
if I'm judging them as like like protagonists, and if we're defining the criteria of a good protagonist having nothing to do with their affiliation or to the Brotherhood, but just as a character within a story. But then I also see the other point where it's like these characters are also in Assassin's Creed more or less to oh man, this is so hard. But like I don't exactly feel as strongly about like your guys' point, James,
Okay.
but I don't know if I feel as strongly where like Laurie's saying, which is why I found myself at B.
Okay.
Um, because it's like, okay, like yeah, I think that they're good characters that are to a degree, carrying the Assassin's Creed sort of a cause and lesson and motives, forward. So it's like, okay,
Okay.
yeah, they're not actually assassins,
Okay.
but then also it's like, okay, but like they kind of stand apart as far as like the impact that they leave on some people because they weren't assassins. So it's like, but then it's like you think about like how important they are to like the how important Cassandra and Alexios became to like the Assassin's Creed like lore,
Mm-hmm.
appearing in other games, etc., etc. So it's just like that has something to say for it as far as okay, maybe they weren't like assassins, but they did play a large role in the mythology moving forward.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm gonna say B because
Okay.
that's just I feel like in
So,
between both of those arguments.
can I suggest something radical here as a compromise? Because we are all over the freaking place.
Okay.
Potential compromise. Alexios and Cassandra at B. Male and female Eivor at C. Because that's kind of asking everybody to move a little bit in the direction of a compromise. Is that crazy?
I feel pretty good about that.
Somebody can fight me if they want to. If you've got a better answer, let me hear it.
I'm not particularly happy with Eivor being that high.
It's only at a C.
Yeah, that is
Too high.
That's just way too high.
That is too
I honestly,
high.
I honestly also kind of agree that like I would be comfortable with Eivor at a D versus Cassandra and Alexios at a B.
I could go for that. I would be happy to bump Alexios and Cassandra up to a B
Okay.
if we could keep Eivor at a D.
God, this is turning into some sort of weird negotiation.
Kind of is. Okay, so
So at a base level,
basically, in no world
yes.
do I see Cassandra and Alexios under Jacob and Evie, but we all
Ooh.
have to move to make this compromise work. So
Okay.
if you want to put them in B, that will be okay, and I would also be fine with putting Eivor at a D.
Okay. I feel like
I'm not
that's
looking
a
at the
good one.
tier list. We did Jacob and Evie.
We
We
did.
did.
They're in A minus.
A minus. Okay. All right. Cool. All right. I just needed that context.
Okay. So just to make sure I got this right, because I want everybody happy with this. That's impossible. I want everybody to not like cry themselves to sleep tonight with this. That puts
I'm
Cassandra
happy with it.
and Alexios at B, and I put both female and male Eivor at D. Is that right? Did I hear
Yeah.
that right?
Yeah, I think
Yeah.
that's the middle ground.
Okay. Okay. So, this brings us to Basim. I know that during the 24-hour stream, you guys spoke very highly of Mirage as a game. Am I correct in assuming that we also have a high opinion here?
Well, I do, and I believe Basim is a. Initially, I want to say A plus, but there's one more character to come. There's two more characters to come that I think are better than him.
Okay.
So I would probably go. Yeah, I'd probably go A. Yeah, A. I'll go A.
Basim
I think he's
A.
Yeah, I think his voice acting's great. I think him as a person, he goes through a lot of trauma, obviously. Obviously with the new DLC coming out, and we know that we're going to be searching for his dad, and then you've got all the children that were brutally murdered, and God knows what else. He's been through a lot, and
Yep.
to get through it, to even find out that he was the reincarnation of Loki, most people would have given up before they even got to that point. And for him to not have and to continue going, I think it shows a real strength in his character and a real growth for him.
Okay. So Basim at an A. Anybody else strong feelings they want to voice right off the jump?
I definitely wouldn't put him as high. Like, I barely remember him. Like, was he that good?
That was kind of my question. Like, the issues that I took with Mirage when we did that 24-hour stream were pretty much entirely seated in the mechanics of how the game was constructed. Him as a protagonist, like removing him from those mechanics, he was fine. I can't say that I ever really identified with the character or ever really, got emotionally invested. I was thinking something like A minus or B.
Yeah, I could go with A minus or B also.
Okay.
I'm feeling A minus.
A minus. James, buddy, we're
What
almost
what
at the
what
end.
makes him like what's even the like I mean I'm fine like we can put him in A minus but like why? Like what is
Yeah,
so so good
because
about him?
but what is so I would say that he's a better character than I would argue that he's a better character than Jacob and Evie. Is he
Isn't
a
he
better?
Loki?
Is it
Isn't he the
his?
bad?
Yeah, but for the so for the majority of his story, he's not. So if we, I think he's a better character than both Jacob and um
Evie?
Evie. But is he a better character? Is he a better character than Shay? I don't know. Have we harshly ranked Shay? Because I feel if we put Basim in at A minus, I personally think he's higher. I I really enjoyed his story. I really enjoyed the game. Um, I just think he was a good character. I think it was almost a return to Ubisoft's great character writing for me personally.
Uh-huh.
But we can stick him in A minus. If everyone's happy with A minus, I'm happy with that too.
Yeah, I can do A minus.
I'd personally go with A minus.
All right. I would have put him lower, but you all are for A minus, so I'll go with that too.
I feel like the next one's going to be a compromise as well.
Okay, I'll kick this off. I'm gonna do them both at the same time. Same game. I'll do them at the same time. Naoe and Yasuke. Okay. I'm gonna put Yasuke higher than Naoe. I don't think either one of them are bad by any stretch. Quite frankly, I'm thinking A plus for Yasuke, and I'm thinking A for Naoe. My biggest... This is gonna sound like it's nitpicking, and it probably is, but I'm the one on camera, so deal with it, everybody at home.
Go ahead.
One of the things that bothered me about Shadows from a narrative perspective was how relatively easily Naoe and Yasuke came to join forces with each other. Like, I know there was that moment of confrontation, and I know that there was that moment where Junjiro gets involved and helps Naoe start to move a little bit, but we went kind of fast for me from, okay, it's on site to, okay, you can bunk next to me in our secret safe house. Like, there wasn't really any sort of like gradual buildup of trust, and that just always seemed really weird from Nawe's perspective. Yasuke's probably thanking his lucky stars because could I mean he gave Nawe the chance to gank him right then and there, but she didn't take it. And he's probably happy that she, trusts him so quickly because he knows that his turnaround was legitimate and his, journey to the cause of, the assassins was legitimate. But Nawe just kind of seemed a little stilted in the writing and how she looked at things. Bad, no, but I'm going Yasuke A plus, Nawe A.
Oh, pretty high.
Uh oh. What you got, Lori?
No, my question is why would you put them at A plus or A, which is pretty high on this list, generally?
I think it's a lot of what I'd like to see from protagonists. I think it's an ability on both of their parts to look at their individual circumstances. If you take if you take Yasuke first at A plus, being born into the circumstances he was in, he's captured and made into a slave and taken to this foreign land. He's able to turn that trauma that he experiences into a fight for other people around him that says, I don't want anybody to have to go through what I went through. There are some tinges of revenge in there, and to Lori's point, I believe it was about Bayek. That's not necessarily in line with the whole Kakushiba Iki, but he's able to turn a horrible, horrific experience into something really positive, and I respect that. He's able to look at the perspectives of other people around him and say, okay, I want to learn about this culture. I want to make a home for myself here. I want to stand up for my friends. I want to be someone who, lives by his values. I don't really see a lot of problems with him. I've tried to make this clear, but if I haven't, if you guys have problems that you want to voice, I'm always open to changing my mind. But that's why Yasuke is at an A plus, and Nawe kind of similarly. She kind of just gets tossed into this conflict, and she loses her father in the process, and it takes a lot to be able to turn that into, okay, let's not just go for revenge. Yes, there are a lot of elements to revenge, but let's not just go for revenge. Let's build something lasting to make sure that the people who have been taking advantage of the citizenry of Japan, that there's something in place to fight that corruption. Like I said, she accepted Yasuke a little too quick for me, which is why she's just a skosh lower, but I think they're both great. How badly off am I from the rest of you?
Not super off for me at least.
Okay.
I think they are some of the best written characters because you can tell they put a lot of effort into it.
Okay.
Into them, I should say. Like there's backstory, there's characters, there's a lot of reflection happening, there's character development for both happening. I
Sure.
think you can tell they really put a lot of effort into that, and I think they did
Yeah.
well.
Mhm.
I don't know. Do I see Nawe lower as Yasuke? I'm not sure. I
Okay.
probably would have put them in the same tier.
Ooh, okay.
Just because you're so different. Like I can't tell you like who I like more or who I think is the better assassin or because they're so different. They have very different motives, they have very different backgrounds, they
Sure.
have very different fighting styles.
Sure.
Which is intentional. I probably would have put them in the same tier. I probably would have put them in A minus, like straight out the
Ooh, okay.
middle of the tier list.
Solid A minus on both.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Charlie, what you got for us, brother?
So I'm like weighing between sort of like A minus. So like right now on average I'm thinking A minus for them, but like in my head I'm going back and forth of if one of them should move up or one of them should move down. Because I also feel in my head that I liked Yasuke as a protagonist uh over Nawe as a protagonist, but that had less to do with their like personalities or their motives per se, but more in their the like the like circumstances that they're in, I guess, which
Okay.
has less to do with I guess who they are as protagonists, but it does have to do with like what they choose to do, I guess.
Sure.
But uh, I just remember just like Yasuke's story felt a little bit more memorable. Like it had a few more memorable moments for me than Nawe's story did. Just like fights or cutscenes that sort of stuck with me a little bit, or just like moments of revelation that stuck with me. And I also agree with you that like I do wish there was a little bit more conflict between them, just because I feel like that could have maybe given us a little bit more to chew on with like who they are as people and
Yeah.
uh their flaws and everything, rather than kind of joining each other for the cause so quickly. But
Okay.
I think I'm feeling I'm gonna say Yasuke A minus, just because when I see Yasuke alongside of some of these other characters, I feel like I don't know. I feel how I feel about like Shay
Mm-hmm.
and how different his story was and what he had to offer
Yeah.
to Assassin's Creed. I feel very similar to like Yasuke's story and what he has to offer on like the franchise as a whole.
Okay.
Um, but Nawe is I'm debating A minus and B for Nawe. Um,
Go even lower. Okay.
that, that's kind of where I stand is A minus or B. It's like a soft A minus, soft B, somewhere there,
Okay.
just because I just wasn't as she was good and her story was good, but I don't know if it left the same sort of impact on me
Okay.
as Yasuke's story did.
Okay.
So, all right.
James, you're awfully quiet there, brother.
I'm just listening, and for me, I'd have it the other way round. However we do it, I think Norway has to be above Yasuke.
Okay.
Um,
Tell me why.
for me, I think her story was fantastic. Her growth is almost Ezio like, where
Okay.
it all starts out for revenge, and then she understands that there's something there's something more to this than just revenge.
Yeah.
Um, I did. I understand the complaints that people have said about like the story and what have you, but
Sure.
I found it really easy to follow, and
Okay.
I found her growth across taking out. If we were to get rid of all the side content and just dealing with the Shinbaku and Awaji, and I think her growth across all of it has been fantastic. I think she's a great character and a great personality, and
Okay.
I personally think she deserves another game, or at least another outing of some sort. Um, Yasuke for me, yes, he's his story may be considered better because it's a lot smaller in the grand scheme of things, because he's not going after the Shinbaku for the same reasons as Norway. So
Okay.
his personal story is linear, whereas I feel like Shadows is Narway's story, whereas Yasuke's is a very linear, very small snippet of story.
Sure.
I just don't think he has enough in it, really. And I think I don't think he has a big enough impact on the story as much as she does.
Okay.
Generally, I just think she's a much better protagonist as a whole, and she's my second favorite protagonist. So I feel like she definitely deserves to be up high on the list.
Okay.
So I'm kind of in the same place as you with it, really. I would have both of them on the same ranking, but I think generally speaking, she's slightly above him. Above him.
But not enough to justify her own rank.
I I I would put her like in an A plus and him on an A,
Okay.
but you guys seem to. I was listening to you guys, and the consensus was that they would both be on the same list generally, um, which I could go for as well. It's not something I would be
Okay.
opposed to.
So it seems like there's a pretty decent spread among us. The compromise that I see looking at this list right now is that the general consensus seems to be moving more in the direction of Nawe being higher than Yasuke. Wait, no, Charlie said
No, it's Yasuke.
yeah, Yasuke being higher. Yeah, because Charlie said B for Nawe, potentially. God, it's hard to do math at this hour. Am I crazy for saying, what do we think, both at A minus?
I feel good with that.
I have two more reasons why I wouldn't put them in A or higher. So I would be fine with A minus, but maybe two more reasons to consider
Okay.
are that I think as well as I think that both characters are written, I think that it was more like a gameplay choice of Ubisoft to have them.
Okay.
Because like potentially they were like, okay, we want to keep doing the male female character kind of thing.
Sure.
We want to keep doing that. But also we don't want to do it like in Odyssey, where it's basically the same story. What they forgot though is to really like bring those characters and stories together well within the entire game. Like, although you keep switching between them, you play Nawe, you play Yasuke, probably potentially back and forth.
Yeah.
Um, it still feels like they're very much separated and not a team.
Okay.
Um, and their stories don't really align a lot. Um,
I'd be willing to hear that.
and also, yeah, and the other point is that if I look at who's in tier A plus, and S, all of these characters have cross game impact. Um, in a very big meaning, in a meaningful way,
Yeah.
and I just can't put them as high. I don't think they're bad, but I just can't put them like into the meta tiers that like really influence the entire
Okay.
franchise.
Okay. Then I think both of them in A minus stands to be our compromise, unless somebody wants to object.
Yeah, I think so.
No,
think
I'm
good.
happy with that.
Okay. So we are approaching my heart out, so I do have to wrap it up at this point. But we did get through
Alright.
every historical protagonist. Technically, the list does offer Desmond Miles and Layla Hassan as protagonists to be ranked as well. can we restrain ourselves to 30-second explanations and put them on this list, or do we want to just leave it for?
I can do them at the same time.
Okay.
Is this
Desmond
D
is
again?
an A plus.
Oh.
Desmond is an A plus, and Leda is a D.
Okay, we'll need more time than 30 seconds.
Fair enough. Fair enough. I'm gonna download this file. I'm gonna download this file when I'm not streaming my desktop out, so I don't accidentally dox myself for the 18th time in my career.
It's also 3 a.m. for me, so
I was gonna say,
I gotta go too.
for the European friends here that have so graciously allowed the later start time to allow for me over here in the States to just get out of work and then come straight home and do this stream for all of you guys. Yeah, they're sitting at some pretty god-awful hours right now, so
2 a.m. right now.
yeah. Let's let Lori and James get to sleep. Thank you, everybody, so much for watching this team stream. This has been buckets of fun. I love getting to hang out with the team. I love getting to have these great, grand old discussions. This is our tier list as it stands right now. We will be downloading this, and I will be trying to get this over to the social media team, because the geniuses over there, I'm sure, will want to plaster this all over the social media to invite all of you to your own discussion. Do you agree? Do you disagree? Do you hate our opinions? Do you hate us? I hope it doesn't get that deep, but you do you.
Wait, what? Nobody hates us. We're great.
No, exactly. Nobody can hate me.
But yeah, I mean, there's 2 characters left that are not on the tier list yet, so I'm sure people will have opinions about it.
True, very true. Do you agree with our picks? Where would you go from here with Desmond Miles and Layla Hassan? Thank you all so much for watching. Thank you all so much for giving us here on the team the opportunity to bring you this content, to have this sort of fun together with you about this series and this franchise that we love so much. I am just thrilled to be able to do this and to be able to consider this team a part of my life. So thank you all so much for watching. Check us out on pretty much every social media that's ever been created. We have a presence there, probably. By far, I believe we're technically most active on X or Twitter, if you feel like being ornery about it. Check us out. Have some fun.
I think we're most active on. I know that we do Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, and Twitter. YouTube, we're just starting to make sure that more and more stuff goes out on YouTube.
Yes.
And we're on Blue Sky as well, which is something I didn't know about. Just show my age.
I don't even know what that is.
Yeah, for all you Blue Sky folks, get on over, hang out with us there. We've got a crack social media team. We all love interacting with every single one of you. This has been one of the greatest journey of all of our lives to be able to do this and to put this together for you. So thank you all for watching. I'm going to leave this up to my 3 co-hosts here. Those are my final words. I appreciate every single one of you guys watching today. And for those of you who are particularly interested in seeing my face again, I am Sisterly Thrower. I am one of the streamers and video creators for the team here. So you will see me on as regular of a basis as I can possibly manage on Twitch, on TikTok, and if that internet upgrade goes through anytime soon, on YouTube as well. Every Tuesday night, every Thursday night. I'm late here in the States, and I'm nice and early in the mornings over if you're in the European area. But I hope to see all of you there. Thank you so much for watching. Anybody else, any final words?
No, thanks for hosting.
Yeah, no, would love to do this again. I'm sorry I had to dip out in the middle there, but yeah, I would definitely love to be a part of more of these. To anyone watching, I want to say that it's like super, like, a community is super important in any game or sort of pop culture thing I'm into. Like, the culture is always, the culture, the community, it's always like played a big role in keeping people together and celebrating the things that we love. So definitely engaging in discussion and conversation in this community, outside this community, and any sort of Assassin's Creed communities, it always helps keep the culture alive, and it helps make sure that the players being kept first in a lot of these different industries, which is important. So yeah.
Absolutely. Absolutely. James, Laurie,
Um,
any final thoughts?
I just wanted to say, well, firstly, thank you for having us. It's been great fun. I love doing these tier lists. I can't wait for the next one. Yeah, if you're not already, you can follow us on any of our socials, the ones who came before. But also, as some people might know, we do a podcast live episode every Sunday at 10 p.m. Over on TikTok. We have special guests every week. I'm actually hosting this week's episode, so that would be great fun. So if you want to catch that, ask some questions, head over to TikTok, the ones who came before, and we'll see you all soon.
And to be clear, that is 10 p.m. UK time.
Yes. Sorry.
All good. All good. Thank you, everybody, so much for watching. This has been The Ones Who Came Before. We have Sisterly Thrower, we have Charlie, we have Laurie Runs, and we have James. Unless there's any particular individual social handles that you guys want to shout out right now.
Yep.
All right, then. Thank you so much for watching. Let us know in the comments as well, if you're watching this in post, what tier list do you want to see us duke it out over next time? There may or may not have already been some pre-made tier lists on this website that I stole from, specifically about the robes of every assassin.
Ooh,
And I could see that getting
Ooh.
extremely violent among the four of us.
that's a good one.
If you want to see us get violent over that topic or any other topic, let us know. This has been The Ones Who Came Before. Thank you, everybody, so much. And until next time, stay safe, assassins.